How did Jack go from your local neurosurgeon
I just don't like blood too much.
And you probably won't want to be looking at that.
to traveling through space and time? Well, you're about to find out. Grab your favorite plane seat and enjoy some Dharma candy bars, because we're about to travel to an alternate reality. Or is it the afterlife? Well, we'll find out. Before we take off, let's meet some of the main characters. Starting strong, we have Jack, the man, the myth, the legend, the doctor. In his normal life, he was a surgeon, but he adapts nicely to the land of the lost by becoming a makeshift leader. Next, we have Kate, who has done some questionable things in her life, but we'll dissect all of that later. This show is full of flashbacks. She's the main lady of the island, taking charge and being the #1 romantic interest. Following her, we have Sawyer, the angsty cowboy of the group. There's Claire, who is currently pregnant, and Charlie, who is a part of a band from Ireland. Michael and Walt, the awkward father-son duo, and John Locke, a paralyzed man in a wheelchair, a couple who are clearly unhappy. Sun and Jin, a sibling duo, Boone and Shannon, and lastly Saeed, your average day retired assassin and interrogator. And with that, we're off. Or more accurately, we've crash landed. Our first episode in this series is titled Pilot. The first scene is of Jack staring up into a bamboo-filled sky above him. He's lying on his back, but as he wakes up, he immediately starts to run towards the sounds of screams near him. He emerges onto a beach, and the landscape that is presented before him is a nightmare. A burning cabin of a plane lies just ahead of him, with flames and falling parts still escaping the mangled specimen that used to be a Boeing 777. The frantic yelling is of those still trapped beneath pieces of the plane, or the sight of dead bodies surrounding them. There's a pregnant woman having contractions, a woman passed out on the ground with a stranger hovering over her, attempting to perform CPR, and pairs of people trying to calm each other down. After observing the scene, Jack begins helping those around him, assigning people tasks, and just being a first responder in general. After tending to everybody else, Jack takes a moment for himself and assesses his own physical well-being. He has a giant gash on the side of his body, out of reach for him to do anything about it for himself. He sees a woman, Kate, walking near him, and he calls her over, asking if she's ever sewn before, and insisting that she help him since she has. He tells her that he's a trained surgeon, and he would fix himself up if he could only reach it. As he gets to know her, it's clear that the two take a bit of a liking to each other. And in my opinion, they are two of the most normal people in their strange group of humans. Later that night, something strange happens. I'm not talking gossip or whispers around their makeshift camp. I'm talking about entire trees getting blown down in the distance, as if a huge monster is scurrying throughout the brush. Everyone's pretty freaked out, and everybody agrees to stay on the beach for the remainder of the night. The next morning, Jack announces that he will go to search for the receiver that he believes is located at the front end of the plane. Kate, being his new buddy, obviously states that she will be going with him. There's a strange tag-along as well, Charlie, an English singer who won't stop boasting about who he is. He decides that he's going to join the two on their adventure through the forest. When the three reach the front part of the plane, it's elevated in the trees, so they have to essentially rock climb to get to the cockpit. While rummaging around up there, the main pilot jolts awake. He tells Kate and Jack that 6 hours into their flight, the radio went out and nobody could see them. They turned around to land, but turbulence began, and they ended up 1,000 miles off course. He's not hopeful that anybody would be looking for them anywhere near their current location. He hands Jack the transceiver, but it isn't turning on. The group begins to hear some creepy noises, and before long, the pilot is ripped from the plane and slaughtered outside, landing in a tree all bloody and bruised. The three of them run away, eventually making their way back together and to the camp. The second episode begins with a small flashback of Charlie's experience on the plane before it crashed. He was on edge and did some drugs in the bathroom. While in the bathroom, the turbulence was so severe that he slammed into the ceiling, and everything went to hell. Back on the beach, we learn of another character, Boone. He keeps vulturing around this one girl, Shannon, and I was originally playing the siblings or not in my head, but turns out they are actually brother and sister. Meanwhile, Michael, who always sports his son directly next to him, can't seem to find his son, Walter, or Walt for short. He asks the Korean couple, Sun and Jin, who survived the plane crash with them, but the woman doesn't speak English. It's clear that her husband is screaming at her to button more of her shirt up. Kinda awkward. Michael leaves the couple to their quarrel and continues to search. Little does he know that his son's currently in the woods uncovering a peculiar item. Handcuffs. He brings them back to the beach, and a fight breaks loose between the two of the men in the group. One of them is accusing the other of being the one wearing handcuffs the entire flight and potentially terrorizing them and causing the plane to crash. Thankfully, Jack returns before things can get too serious, separating the men and ending the fight. Jack finds someone. His name is Saeed, who can fix the transceiver, but the battery is dead. Jack has been tasked with mending the still mortally wounded, so Kate makes a treacherous decision. She decides that she'll be taking the transceiver to the top of the island's mountain so that they have the best chance of sending out a signal. Or better yet, getting in contact with somebody. Jack is not in favor of this plan, as he'd rather the two go together, but he listens to reason and allows her to go under one condition. If she feels like she's in danger, she needs to run. Several people decide to go with her on her journey. Boone's sister Shannon, Charlie, the guy who fixed the transceiver, Saeed, and an angsty guy who hasn't been shown too much thus far, Sawyer. Not far into their journey, the group gets chased by a large creature. But thankfully, maybe unthankfully, Sawyer has a gun and shoots it down, revealing it to be a polar bear. Kate and everybody else in the group are wondering why on earth Sawyer has a gun. He tells the group that he found it on a U.S. Marshal, but nobody quite believes him. Kate disarms him and has Saeed tell her to get the chamber out of the gun. She gives the chamber to Saeed and the gun back to Sawyer. Sawyer then acts like a total freako weirdo towards Kate and kind of way in front of everybody, which I thought was pretty bold, pretty creepy. The episode then cuts to Kate's POV of the plane before it went down. She was the one wearing the handcuffs, and the jerk next to her was escorting her. He mentioned something like, "Nobody's gonna believe your story," before the plane began to crash. However, while it was crashing, Kate did attempt to save him, giving him his oxygen mask before she herself, as he was passed out and couldn't get his own. It's then revealed that the person Jack has been mending, the person who's been passed out on the beach since they crashed, is the one who is supposed to be escorting Kate. He grips onto Jack's shirt and demands to know where she is, obviously talking about Kate. Kate and her group finally get something to play on the radio. It's a French woman saying, "Please, someone, come get me. I'm the only one left on the island. It has killed them all." And for some reason, the distress call has been going on for 16 years. In the following episode, we're back on the beach, where Kate's handler keeps saying, "She's dangerous. She's dangerous." Jack soon finds a photo in the handler's pocket of Kate, shocking him to his core. Later that night, Hurley finds the photo of Kate, but when he asks Jack, he responds, "That's none of my business." At this point, that's probably the best answer. Kate and her group return, and don't tell the main group that they weren't able to send out a signal because there was already one going for 16 years. They didn't want everybody to panic and lose hope. Kate pulls Jack to the side and tells him anyway. He then asks her if there's anything else that she'd like to tell him, but she doesn't mention her mugshot. She asks if the handler woke up and if he said anything, but Jack denies him mentioning anything in his brief awake moment on the beach. We're then shown some of Kate's backstory. Apparently, she had crashed with an old farmer as he offered her a lodge and food if she did chores around the house. The relationship wasn't weird, by the way. Seemed very father-daughter-esque. However, she tried to leave one night, but the man convinced her to stay. He then gave her up to the handler guy as there was a $23,000 reward, and he really needed the money. Before she could get taken away, she had swerved the old man's truck off the road, rolling it multiple times and hurting the old man's head while doing so. She dragged his body into the tall grass and back up to the highway. Marshall, her future handler and the man who had put her up for prize money, had then pulled a gun on her, greeting her by her name. Kate essentially sacrificed herself in the situation, as she had saved the old man, but she knew that she would get caught because of it. On the beach, Kate goes to visit the handler, but he wakes up with only her there, and he begins to choke her out. Jack shows up at just the right moment. He stops the fight, and then assumes that Kate did something to Marshall to get him to act like that. She suggests killing him to put him out of his misery. Jack gets upset when she says this, saying that he saw her mugshots, and that he's not a killer, so he's not going to do that. Later that night, everybody in the camp feels like he should kill Marshall as well, since he's been moaning and groaning the entire time that he's been in the camp. Sawyer talks with Kate by the campfire about how she should be the one to kill Marshall, since she's the one who has the gun. Meanwhile, at the same time, Marshall's demanding that he talk to Kate alone, and he still won't tell Jack anything about Kate's past or what she's done. She agrees to go into his tent, but she doesn't kill him, because Sawyer did. Apparently, Marshall had asked him to, but he missed his heart, puncturing a lung instead, making his suffering much worse.
What did you do?
What you couldn't. Look, I get where you're coming from being a doctor.
Jack suffocates Marshall so that he won't have to live his last moments in hell. The following day, Kate sits with Jack on the beach and tells him that she'd like to tell him what she's done, but he tells her that it doesn't matter. They all died 3 days ago. Doesn't matter what sins they committed before then. Well, thanks, Jack. I was getting pretty curious about what she did. Our next episode begins with wild boars being on the island, so count that as the second strange animal sighting thus far. The following morning, Kate talks with Saeed, who is convinced that there must be a significant power source on the island, considering the French lady's transmission has been going on for 16 years. Saeed is trying to create a device that will be able to track the power source, giving them a better chance at finding a way to send out their own signal. Shortly after their conversation, John Locke, a strange older gentleman, who's been mostly keeping to himself and talking to Walt, much to Michael's dismay, announces that they'll need to start hunting to survive since they've run out of food. He then presents to the group his bag of knives. While on their hunting adventure, Michael gets attacked by a wild boar. Kate wants to get him back to their base, but Locke wants to keep searching for the boar that had attacked them. Kate begs him not to go, but he doesn't listen, running away from the two. He doesn't find the boar, though, but he does lay eyes on something mysterious in the forest. We don't know what it is yet, but it filled his eyes with fear and wonder at the same time. Jack, while on a hill at the beach, sees a strange man in a suit off in the distance. But as soon as he does a double take, the man is gone. Strangely enough, Locke doesn't die. Even though we definitely saw him see something very large and scary in the woods, he even returns to the beach with a dead boar. He asked that night about seeing the creature, but he denies seeing anything at all. It's crazy work to be lying about that kind of near-death experience, but maybe that's just me. In episode 5 of season 1, we dive into more of Jack's daddy issues. It begins with Jack seeing the strange man in the suit once more in the ocean. He tries to tell Kate about it, but she doesn't see anything, and starts assuming that he's just seeing things because he hasn't slept in a while. Not too long later, Jack chases down one of his visions, and the man turns around. He's horrified to see that the man in the suit is actually his own father. Meanwhile, back on the beach, Claire, the pregnant lady, passes out, probably from dehydration. But there's no water to be found. The reserves that they had have completely disappeared, presumably stolen. Locke tells the others that he'll look for some water since he spends the most time wandering. And good thing, since he finds Jack in a detrimental situation due to his trying to chase his father's ghost. On the beach, Kate finds the Korean couple to have a water bottle, and after asking where they got it, they point to Sawyer. Saeed tells Kate that they should wait for Sawyer to find where he's keeping the water, but Kate has other plans. Upon finding Sawyer, she straight up tackles him to the ground and insists on answers immediately. He tells them that he traded his last 2 water bottles for the salmon that Sun and Jin had caught. They take this as an answer and move on with the day. In the jungle, Jack tells Locke the truth behind why he's so far out there. Locke, in return, tells Jack that while it may be a hallucination that he's seeing, it could very well be something real. The island that they're living on seems strange enough as it is. The last thing he says about it is that he looked into the eye of the island and it was beautiful. He then tells Jack that he should continue his path forward with his goal of finding his father, before heading out to find more water. How did he know that? And so Jack does, letting his visions take him to the other half of the plane, which carries people's items scattered across the area. He finds a casket with Jack's father in it. What? He doesn't wait long before he begins obliterating the casket with an emergency axe. Oh, okay, alright. Get it all out, Jack. I'm sure he deserved it, whatever he did. After getting his frustrations out, he leaves and makes his way back to the camp. And once there, he pulls all the islanders together to call out their constant arguing, saying that if they don't start getting along, then they're all going to die. Kind of a brave thing to say after obliterating your father's casket. Episode 6 begins with Jack and the others heading off to the water source that he had found whenever he was searching for his father. Kate runs in while running from bees and stumbles upon some skeletons. Skeletons that have been there for a very long time. Jack announces that they need to bring the humans to the pond instead of bringing the water to the humans. While he and Kate head back to the camp to tell the others, she clearly begins to flirt with him a little bit. On the beach, Michael is attacked by Sun for seemingly no reason. Michael's son is the one who alerts the others of the escalating fight, and they're able to stop it before it's too late. Michael says he hasn't done anything wrong, and Jin can't tell his side of the story since he speaks Korean. Now, I was assuming that maybe there was a secret relationship going on between Sun and Michael, but that's not the case. Sun approaches Michael and speaks fluent English. Through her backstory, we learn of her secret past. Essentially, Sun was not supposed to be on this flight with her husband. She was going to run away and change her identity, hiring a lady to teach her English and arrange a getaway car. She was supposed to leave the airport at 11:15 before her flight, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. So, alas, she's now stuck on this island with her husband, not knowing if she still loves him. She hasn't told him that she knows English, which is why she hasn't talked to anybody. During her conversation with Michael, she explains that the reason her husband attacked him was because he was wearing her father's gold watch. It's considered dishonorable in her family for the husband not to react like that. It's one of the greatest defenses. So anyone wearing a gold watch is now a potential Jin victim? Yikes. Later in the episode, it's revealed that Michael is rarely with Walt. He never visits him. And unfortunately, one of the few times that he actually took the time to fly out to get them, they happened to be on the plane when it crashed. This would explain their kind of strange relationship dynamic. and why Walt almost always ignores him and attempts to be rid of him. It is clear at some point in the episode that one group of people wants to go to the caves, and some want to stay on the beach. Kate is wound up in the middle, with Jack being her voice of reason, wanting to live in the cave, safe from the sun, and with access to water. And Sawyer is her voice of emotion, wanting to stay on the beach for fear of being missed by a plane if one were to pass by. The next episode, Moth, consists of Charlie's backstory, and lays out the reason that he is the way that he is. Long story short, he was part of a band and got caught up in drugs. Didn't know you could snort heroin, but apparently you can. If you're Charlie, you snort a lot of it. He tried getting out of the band before things got too bad, but his brother wouldn't listen to him, as he too was already too caught up in dopamine overload. Because of Charlie's drug addiction, he cannot stop tweaking out while on the island, almost stealing drugs from the medical supply stash that everybody shares on the island. In other positive news, Walt begins to respect his dad Michael slightly when Michael instructs everybody on how to avoid being toppled by falling rocks. The episode ends with a violent cliffhanger. Saeed has been trying to figure out the power source for the transceiver and has made a plan involving Boone and Kate. Essentially, they all have to set up firework devices to signal that they're ready to turn on their devices at different locations simultaneously. But right before Saeed can get a signal on the transceiver, somebody knocks him out from behind. Episode 8 begins with Saeed trying to find justice for the hit to the head. He goes on an interrogation spree throughout the camp, trying to figure out who knocked him out in the middle of the night. But he's distracted whenever Shannon begins to have a frequent asthma attack. Shannon has asthma, been too embarrassed to tell people about it since she was a little kid. Because of her embarrassment, she told Boone not to tell anybody either, even when she started needing medical help on the island. Boone noticed that Sawyer had one of the books from their luggage in his possession and assumed that he had all of their luggage with him as well. Boone began rummaging through Sawyer's items. When he was caught, Sawyer beat him up, crazy style. Boone goes to Jack, bloodied and bruised, telling him what went down. Jack is frustrated and heads down to meet Sawyer, demanding that they give up the asthma medicine as Shannon is in dire need of it. Still, Sawyer refuses.
Oh, that.
You attacked a kid for trying to help his sick sister.
No, I whooped a thief because he was going through my stuff.
The only person who gets a slight chance of getting the medicine is Kate, whose only payment for the medicine is kissing Sawyer. His one request. What a good guy. Kate is frustrated with Sawyer, demanding to know why he is the way that he is. So we get his flashback. His flashback is of him getting entangled with a married woman. He lets it slip that he has $150,000 on standby for a deal with an oil rig company. All he needs is a couple more thousand to get the total that he'll need. She agrees, lying to her husband and getting him to use his money on the deal. But Sawyer stole the money because his oil rig story was actually a lie. Because of his swindling plan, the husband found out that his wife was cheating and lying to him. So he kills her and then kills himself. Their child, who appears to be a little boy, writes the man who ruined his parents' lives a letter saying that one day he's going to find him. The letter is addressed to a man named Sawyer, meaning that that was the name of the man who conned his parents. It doesn't take Kate too long to find out the whole truth. That it would be impossible for a little kid to have written this letter to Sawyer because of the location of the sticker that sealed the envelope. It's old, like super old. And so Sawyer wrote the letter himself long ago when he was a kid. Everything that happened in the letter did actually happen to a younger him by a man named Sawyer. But it wasn't actually the Sawyer that we're familiar with. Sawyer did do something similar, and he hasn't been able to forgive himself. He was short $6,000. He owed a group of people that he was scared to get into a bad light with. So he did the same thing that Sawyer did in the letter. He romanced a woman and tricked her into giving him $6,000 from her unloving husband, and then ghosted her. So he's been going by Sawyer ever since, punishing himself by using the name that he despises, turning into the man that he swore that he would hate forever. So, in short, Sawyer purposely makes himself unlikable because he hates himself and feels as though he deserves it. Kate leaves him without that kiss, and shortly after, he gets a much less friendly greeting. Jack and Saeed begin to torture him to get him to fess up on the location of the inhaler, but Sawyer doesn't tell, saying he's only gonna tell Kate. When she emerges again, he asks her again for the kiss, and she obliges. But even more so, she makes out with him willingly. Okay. And when she's done, she waits for his answer, only for him to tell her that he never had the medicine in the first place. Just annoyed because everybody assumed he was hiding something from them when he actually wasn't. Thankfully, Shannon survives her asthma fit with the help of the eucalyptus plant Sun found for her. The episode ends with Charlie and Claire flirting on the beach, and Saeed deciding that he's going to leave the group and go on his own deep jungle journey. He's disgusted by the torture that he's inflicted on other people, aka Sawyer, as he swore never to torture somebody again. Episode 9 begins with Saeed running into an old friend, perhaps an old foe. The relationship seems complicated. Whenever Saeed goes off into the jungle by himself, he stumbles upon Rousseau, a woman who Saeed seems to have known in his past. they exchange strange words. First, they both point guns at each other, but when Saeed goes to fire, his gun fails to work. Rousseau calmly explains that everyone on her plane got sick, so she had to kill them. Saeed tells her that he isn't sick, so she doesn't have to shoot. Eventually, she lowers her weapon. He tells her of his friends and that she will be safe with them. She has no interest in rejoining any sort of society. Her last cryptic message before leaving is that Saeed needs to watch the people that he's with. Like, really watch them. The episode ends with Saeed still being in the jungle later that night, hearing strange whispers in the wind while frantically looking around. Claire gets attacked in the night by a strange man, but there's no proof of anybody being there in the first place. Hurley gets annoyed as he can't quite ask anybody because he doesn't even know the names of most of the people on the island. To tackle this problem, he'd like to set up a registry that everyone can get to know each other and recognize people by name. He feels as though it would be harder for people to commit crimes if people felt a sense of responsibility. Hurley interviews a guy named Ethan, but his name isn't anywhere on the directory of the plane, meaning Ethan was on the island before they arrived. Meanwhile, Charlie gets to know Claire, and soon after, he's flirting with her and trying to get to know her better. Saeed comes back to Jack, yelling that he had found the French woman from the distress call. He's referencing Rousseau, the woman that he saw in the woods. The episode ends with Ethan showing up in front of Charlie and Claire, looking super creepy. Claire looks frightened, as she thinks she now knows who tried to stab her stomach. In the next episode, Jack runs off into the woods looking for Claire and Charlie, since he's worried that they might be in danger, as they haven't been seen since their last encounter with Ethan. He's followed by Kate, Boone, and Locke. Pretty far into their journey, they find one of Charlie's knuckle rings that he had been wearing the day before. The group follows them, but at one point, the group splits up into two different paths. There are two different options as to where the captured people might have gone. Locke and Boone team up, and Jack and Kate obviously stay together. Jack is attacked by Ethan, and unfortunately gets the beat out of him. He races towards the area he saw Ethan heading, and he finds Charlie hung up in a tree. Like, hung. Thankfully, Jack is able to revive him. Once back at the campfire that night, Charlie tells Jack that he doesn't remember anything about being captured. Then he says that all they wanted was Claire. Out in the woods that night, Boone and Locke are still wandering. Locke throws Boone a flashlight, and it lands on the ground, slamming onto something that sounds like steel. Well, that's interesting. The episode begins with Sawyer stalking Kate upon a pond with a waterfall, and they stumble upon a silver case in the lake after taking a quick swim. Kate insists that the case is hers and gets Sawyer to help her, but when she can't open it, Sawyer accuses her of lying, and she later admits it, telling him to keep the case instead, which is super suspicious. She won't tell Sawyer what's in the briefcase, and we then see some strange flashbacks of Kate. She was part of a scheme back in the day when she worked at a bank office. Burglars came in insisting that they needed a key. Kate plays her part really well, acting like a scared civilian, but it turned out that she and the leader of the thieves are actually lovers. Back in the present, Kate convinces Jack to help her get the key to the case from Marshall's back pocket, insisting that the only thing in the suitcase that she's worried about is some guns. Jack tells her that he's going to help her, but only if she opens the suitcase with him, since he thinks she's lying about there only being guns inside of it. Together, they open it up with her, and giving her what she really wanted, a green envelope with a toy plane inside. Jack demands to know why she was so desperate to get the toy, and she keeps repeating, "It belonged to a man I loved." But after pushing further, she yells, "It belonged to a man I killed." Yikes. Really hope the episode is gonna start explaining some stuff soon. Later on, Jack asks Saeed to take him into the jungle so that he can talk to the French lady that Saeed had mentioned previously. Saeed doesn't want anything to do with the woman, telling Jack that whatever he heard about there being others on the island must have been a trick of the wind. Later, Saeed pulls Shannon to the side to have her translate some French papers that he's found in hopes that they could help them crack the case of the island. Shannon's translation of the French is, "The sea of silver sparkles that changes." That doesn't make any sense in relation to Saeed's math, which should go along with the French words. Her next translation is, "Next to the pond, blue infinity." Saeed gets frustrated with Shannon, and the two bicker. Shannon gets upset and proclaims that she's completely useless, which is probably why she hasn't been doing much since crashing.
Next to the pond, blue eternity?
Back in the jungle, Boone and Locke have told nobody about the mysterious metal that they found on the ground, but Boone had gone and grabbed their axe to try to break through it. Okay, this next episode is kinda wild. You know how I made the joke previously about Boone and Shannon playing siblings or dating? Yeah. Before now, Boone was low-key looking at Saeed crazy whenever he's flirting with Shannon, and now we know why. Before the siblings had gone onto the plane that inevitably crashed them onto the island, Boone had flown to Australia to answer a distress call from Shannon. Sounded like her current boyfriend was beating her up. Once reaching home, Shannon had a huge bruise on her right temple, but even still, she wouldn't leave her boyfriend's house. Boone was not as big as her boyfriend, which is why he hadn't gotten physical with the man. He leaves their house and goes to the police, but as per usual, the police aren't very helpful. It gets to the point where Boone ends up bribing Shannon's current boyfriend with $50,000 to leave her and never return. He went back to the house, but Shannon still won't leave her boyfriend, which is when Boone finds out that she had scammed him out of the money, faking the whole abuse thing. Boone leaves the house after getting beat up by Shannon's boyfriend. That night, something wild happens. Shannon pulls up to Boone's apartment drunk, saying that she knew he was always in love with her and kisses his ear and neck. It's presumed that they were intimate with each other, but also they're step-siblings. What they did was so weird to both of them that Shannon decided that once they're back in LA with their parents, they would just never bring it up again. So by this point, Boone is frustrated. He didn't want to have sex with Shannon, but once they did, he started developing some sort of romantic attraction to her. He voices his frustration as he's tired of her always being the one to make decisions like that. Okay. In the jungle, Boone tells Locke that he wants to tell Shannon about the secret metal door that they had found, which completely upsets Locke. He drugs Boone, and then he ends up having a vision that a mysterious creature killed Shannon. When he finds out that none of it was real, Locke asks Boone how he felt about the experience, to which Boone admits that he was relieved that she had died. With all of this off his chest and soul, he proceeds with Locke, content with not telling Shannon about the secret door. Episode 14 is pretty much just a flashback episode. The beginning consists of Michael and Walt's flashback as a father-son duo. Walt's mother had passed away. Before she died, she gave full custody to Michael, knowing that her current boyfriend only tolerated having Walt as a son out of love for her. Michael had never been a dad before, but wasn't quite ready for the full responsibility of raising a child, and he kind of starts freaking out. The episode concludes with Charlie reading Claire's diary and noticing that she keeps referencing a black rock in her dreams, which is referenced in Russo's notes. Our last scene is Boone and Locke finding Claire in the jungle that night. Upon Claire's return, it's discovered that she seems to be suffering from amnesia. She doesn't remember any of them and is very frightened. The last thing she remembers is being on the flight. Charlie attempts to calm her down, giving her her diary back and telling her that the two of them were friends before she had lost her memory. The following morning, Charlie is out in the jungle when he's nearly choked to death by Ethan. He demands that Charlie bring Claire back to that spot by sundown where he's going to kill somebody from the group. And if he doesn't bring her today, then he'll kill somebody the next day, and every following day until he does. Charlie confides in Locke and Jack about the threat, but the two have opposing views on how to handle it. In the end, Locke decides that they need to tell everybody on the island about the threat and set up booby traps and guards for the time being. Boone decides that he's going to take the first night shift, but he falls asleep pretty quickly. That night, Scott, an unimportant character, is killed on the beach. Fed up with the situation, the group decides to go on offense, collecting the guns surrounding them and using Claire as bait for Ethan. Once in the woods, Ethan chases Claire but is knocked to the ground by Jack. He fights hard, but Jack inevitably gets the upper hand with Charlie shooting Ethan in the chest, which was technically not the plan. What they wanted to do was capture Ethan so that they could find out more information about the island, the other residents, and how he gave Claire amnesia. But Charlie was too angry at the island, and angry that somebody was actively threatening Claire. Sawyer and Kate have some high-tension bonding moments in the forest, and no, it's not. The most important part of their conversation is that Sawyer had also killed a man before. She admits to Kate while playing a never have I ever type of drinking game. Sawyer also comes to terms with his past life. We find out that his real name is James. However, we will be sticking with Sawyer. It's a cooler name. Episode 17 reveals that the raft Michael had been working on is almost complete. But before he can show it off, it begins to burn to the ground. He immediately assumes that it was Jin, since he's been having issues with Michael ever since he thought he and Sun had been flirting. Sawyer beats Jin up in the forest and delivers him to the beach, where everybody awaits his response to the accusations. Michael asks Sun to translate, but she refuses to speak English. Because of her refusal, they repeatedly beat Jin over and over again until she gives in. She tells the others that Jin did not burn the boat. He's actually trying to put out the fire. Jin is furious with her for keeping secrets from him and essentially divorces her right there on the spot.
I was going to leave you. I was going to get away.
He moves to his own little area on the island, which is low-key great for Sun, because she can now soak up rays in her bikini just like all the other women on the island. Meanwhile, Shannon and Saeed's relationship grows more complicated, in the sense that Boone's feelings toward Shannon are still not resolved, and he gets a bit jealous at their newfound fondness for each other. The episode ends with Locke and Walt having a conversation about the raft. Locke already knows that Walt is the one who set the structure aflame. Walt admits that he doesn't want to leave the island, as he likes it there, to which Locke agrees. In episode 18, we find out that there's a strange set of numbers that Hurley used to win the lottery shortly after he crash-landed on the island. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42. They were numbers that a man named Leonard, someone Hurley had previously met at a mental hospital, would repeat on a loop, which Hurley had remembered. Back before the crash, after winning the lottery, Hurley began to have the worst luck imaginable. He decided to visit Leonard and was trying to find information on them and what they meant. Hurley told Leonard that he used the numbers to win the lottery, and Leonard begins to freak out, yelling at Hurley that he had opened up the box because he had used them. So Hurley decided to fly out to a man that Leonard would mention, someone else who also knows the numbers. Here, he talked to Martha, the wife of Leonard's friend. She had told Hurley a couple of different things that had happened to them after using the numbers. Her husband had used them to guess the amount of beans in a jar and get the exact amount. Directly after using the numbers on their way home, they got hit by an oncoming truck, resulting in Martha losing her leg. Hurley asked if her husband was ever able to make the bad luck stop, but only misfortune would follow. Martha told Hurley that they were only able to fully rid themselves of the bad luck once her husband had shot himself with a shotgun. It was on Hurley's plane ride back to America that the plane crashed on the island. He sets off to ask Rousseau about the numbers because he noticed that she wrote them down in her notes. Apparently, her ship changed course to investigate the numbers, but it shipwrecked onto the island. Once on the island, they continued to search the numbers and eventually found a radio tower near a large black rock. Shortly after, all of her crew became deathly ill, and she was forced to kill them all. She went back to the tower and changed the transmission to her distress call instead. She tells Hurley that she does believe the numbers to be cursed, which makes him cry out in relief. He's thought himself to be completely insane ever since getting himself involved with the numbers. Nobody would believe him when he said anything about it. Hurley makes his way back to his small group, Charlie, Saeed, and Jack. He tells Saeed that Rousseau says hey, which makes the other guys respect Hurley a whole lot more, considering Rousseau is technically a very dangerous person on the island. The episode ends with the camera zooming in on the cursed numbers engraved on the metal door out in the jungle. A Locke backstory ensues in episode 19. He finds his biological parents for the very first time, meeting his father and bonding with him quickly. His father tells Locke about his failing kidneys, and Locke offers to donate one of his own. His father's incredibly grateful, but whenever Locke wakes up after the surgery, his father's nowhere to be found. Apparently, his father, Cooper, had swindled Locke into giving him what he wanted, and once he had it, he left. In the jungle, Boone and Locke continue to try and open up what they now know to be a hatch of some sort, with no luck. Later that night, Locke has a horrifying dream of someone repeating the name Teresa with a strange sort of chant. The dream leads him to another plane wreck. Upon Locke waking up, he immediately takes Boone out into the woods to begin their search for the new plane wreck. On their journey, Locke tells Boone of his dream, and Teresa seems to be someone that Boone had previously known. He's confused about how the hell Locke would know anything about her. After arguing for a bit about Teresa and how Locke knows about her, the two stumble upon a dead body, a Nigerian man with priest clothes on, carrying a gun. The two continue on their journey, with Boone finally opening up to Locke about the background of Teresa. She'd been the name of Boone's nanny when he was a kid. He would constantly ask Teresa to come to his room, which was up a large staircase, and one day, she fell down the flight of stairs, breaking her neck. At this point, Locke isn't focused on the conversation anymore, since he can now see the plane wreck that he saw in his dream. Boone has noticed that Locke can hardly support his weight anymore, meaning that Locke is losing his ability to walk again. It soon becomes pretty obvious that Locke will not be able to make it all the way up to the plane, so he instructs Boone to go without him. Once on the plane, Boone notices a radio that is still working. He radios and announces that he's one of the survivors of Oceanic Flight 815, and the unidentified voice on the other line cryptically states that we're the survivors of Oceanic Flight 815. After hearing this strange message, the plane falls, badly injuring Boone. Locke uses all of his strength to hoist Boone onto his shoulders and carries him back to camp. Before Locke can explain to Jack what actually happened, he goes off into the forest and takes his anchor out on the metal that he's yet to open. He begins banging his fist on the hatch, yelling at the island for betraying his trust, when suddenly, the lights come on inside. Episode 20 is centered around trying to save Boone's life and trying to help Clara give birth. Jack instructs Kate to get alcohol from Sawyer so that he can clean Boone's wounds, and this marks the first time that Sawyer easily gives up one of his own items, but maybe that's because he's got a little crush on the girl who asked. On her way back to Jack, Kate hears groaning off into the woods, and she finds Claire beginning the first stage of giving birth. She tries to get Claire to move with her so that Jack can help her, but Claire is unable to move. Kate screams for help, as she needs to stay with Claire and deliver the alcohol at the same time. Jin hears her and rushes to her location, taking the alcohol and leaving to bring it to Jack so that Kate can stay with Claire. Jin informs Jack of Claire's condition via Sun's translation, but Jack can't leave Boone, as he's the one giving him his own blood to keep him alive. He sends Charlie with Jin, giving Charlie instructions for Claire on how to best deliver the baby. Charlie rushes back to Claire to try and help, along with Jin and Kate. The unconventional trio tries their best to help and be supportive in any way they can, and eventually, she gives birth to a baby boy. Back with Boone, Jack has noticed that the blood transfusion isn't working, and that blood is pooling in Boone's leg. Jack is about to amputate it, but before he can, Boone wakes up and begs him not to. He doesn't want to live without a leg, and his wounds are too life-threatening to live, even if his leg were to be chopped off. So with that, Jack allows Boone to die. Boone didn't go out without telling Jack a little something about Locke, about the hatch that they had found. Jack, not having all of his answers and knowing that Boone's injuries were too severe to be from a regular fall, suggests that he was murdered. Episode 21 begins with Jack claiming that Boone was murdered. The reason he says so is that when Locke dropped Boone off before disappearing, he claimed that Boone had been injured by regular causes while hunting for a boar. But after his blood transfusion wasn't working, Jack immediately knew that more things must have happened, and if he had given the proper information, he could have treated Boone better, potentially saved his life. This would make Locke the ultimate killer. Sometime later that day, a funeral is held for Boone. After some kind words are said about him, Locke dares to pull up to the function. Jack isn't having it, tackling Locke to the ground and beating the life out of him before he himself passes out due to lack of energy. Sometime later, while on the beach, Locke approaches Shannon, offering her Boone's belongings that he had and asking her for her forgiveness. Shannon doesn't say much, but she goes to Saeed immediately after the interaction, saying that she'd like him to help her get revenge on Locke for what he's done to her brother. Saeed asks Locke to take him to the plane wreck so that they can gather supplies. On the way there, Saeed asks Locke a bunch of questions about himself in hopes that he can feel around Locke's overall vibe since he's been such a weird nut ever since they crashed. Locke notices the interrogation and confronts Saeed, jokingly about it, but before they dive too deeply into Saeed's reasoning, they arrive at the plane. While there, Saeed continues to mistrust Locke, so Locke does some things that may gain his trust back. He gives Saeed the gun that he and Boone had found, and he tells Saeed that he's the one who knocked him out when he was trying to find the location of the distress signal. But Locke explains that the reason he hadn't confessed sooner was because he wanted to distract Saeed in order for him not to continue his journey in search for the distress signal. The message he was trying to find didn't sound too promising. It killed them all. They're all dead. Yeah, I guess Locke had a point. Later, Jack wakes up and notices that his necklace is missing, the one that harbored the keys to the locked gun cases. He thinks it's Locke, but the others aren't so sure. Meanwhile, Shannon is shown to be rummaging in their gun stash. The show cuts to Shannon pointing a gun at Locke, but before she can shoot him in the head, Saeed tackles her to the ground. Saeed saved Locke's life. The bullet only grazed his forehead. That night, Saeed tells Locke that he doesn't trust him, nor does he forgive him, but he allows him to live because he has a strange feeling that Locke might be important to their survival on the island. He then demands that Locke take him to the hatch that Boone mentioned before he died. Episode 22 begins with Michael and some of the others having been making another raft, but there's only a certain number of allotted spots available on this raft. One of the side characters informs the others that the tides will be changing soon. They will need to leave immediately on the raft if they don't want to end up in Antarctica. This freaks out Kate because she doesn't have a spot on the raft. She's decided that she'd like to take her chances with it for the time being. Tensions rise regarding who gets to go on it when Michael falls ill due to a strange substance in his water bottle. Jack kinda hints that Kate may be responsible for poisoning Michael since she wants to be on the raft so badly. Meanwhile, Michael tells Sawyer that she will not be joining them, since he suspects him of being the one poisoning people. Sawyer gets frustrated, telling everybody on the island that Kate is the culprit, so if anybody should be pointing fingers at somebody, it should be at her. Michael considers Sawyer's words and allows him his spot back once more. While this is happening, Walt approaches Locke and tells him that just because he burnt the other raft down does not mean that he was the one to poison his father. Locke is happy to hear this, obviously. The two have probably one of the strongest bonds compared to anybody else on the island. Before the conversation is over, Walt says something crazy to Locke. He says, "Don't open it," about 3 times, but he doesn't go into detail about what he's talking about, which is really weird considering Locke, Saeed, and Jack are the only ones who know about the hatch. Later, Jack walks up to Sun and admits that he knows that Sun is the one who poisoned the water. She was attempting to poison Jin since she didn't want him to die at sea. She wanted to make him temporarily ill so that he wouldn't be able to have his spot back on the raft. That night, Walt admits to Michael that he's the one who had originally burned down the raft. He didn't want to leave. He didn't know how to tell Michael that. Michael forgives him and assures Walt that they can stay on the island instead if he wants them to. But Walt cryptically says that they can't stay, the word expression on his face. I don't know about you, but I'm assuming that Walt knows some scary shit about the hatch that we don't. In episode 23, Walt frantically wakes the entire island up as Rousseau is creepily approaching them slowly. She tells them all that the others are coming. She goes on to tell them that when she had her baby on the island,
she had the child for about a week before she saw a massive pillar of black smoke off into the distance. She said that night, they came and took her baby away. Her baby, who was named Alex. And now they're going to come again for all of their camp. She says that they have 3 choices. They can run, hide, or die. Jack decides to focus on the raft instead. But after failing to get the raft down to the water, they all look up to see black smoke billowing. Later, Jack and Sawyer are off into the jungle. They have a very intimate heart-to-heart. Sawyer tells Jack that he had a conversation once with a man who said that he was a doctor, and his son was a doctor as well. The doctor wanted to call his son to tell him that he's a better doctor than he's ever going to be, that he wishes he could apologize for everything that he ever did wrong to his kid. Sawyer has a suspicion that the man he's referring to is Jack's father. His suspicions are correct when Jack begins to cry following Sawyer's words. Jack gives Sawyer a gun, sign of trust, protection, and brotherhood following their rocky relationship so far. A group heads off to find some explosives to protect themselves from the so-called others. The group involves a random civilian who hasn't made himself important until now, Arts. He, along with Kate, Jack, Hurley, Locke, and Rousseau. Arts leaves the group once he gets weird vibes from Rousseau, literally as they're approaching the dynamite. Quickly afterwards, Arts comes back screaming that they should all run. He's running from another monster. But Locke tells Hurley to stay completely still, which causes the monster to go in the other direction. Rousseau tells them that the monster is a security system. It's put in place to protect the island. The episode ends with the group finally arriving at the Black Rock, which is revealed to be a giant pirate ship labeled Black Rock. That and the raft taking off with Sawyer, Michael, Walt, and Jin. Jack, Kate, and Locke explore the ship, while Hurley and Art stay outside. Rousseau leaves the group, having never wanted to be a part of them, and was only there to warn them about the others and take them to the Black Rock. Once inside the ship, they noticed that it was used as a slave ship with skeletons hand-carved on the walls in the basement. They retrieve the dynamite and bring it outside for Arts to help them handle, since he has experience with dynamite. After wrapping up one of the sticks, he begins to leave, but is blown up on the spot with chunks of Arts landing all over the place. Jeez. Hurley believes that he killed him because he carries bad luck wherever he goes. He mentions this to Kate, but she doesn't take him too seriously, saying it's just an accident. The remaining group decides to pull sticks to determine who is to carry the dynamite back to their camp.
How many do we need to blow the hatch?
2 should carry the hinge. 3 to be safe.
Safe.
Back on the beach, Rousseau shows up yelling that she needs to see Saeed. Charlie heads off to get him, while Claire stays with her baby near Rousseau. She asks Claire if she can hold her baby, seemingly mesmerized by the sight of a child on the island. Claire doesn't let her. When examining Rousseau's arm, she notices that she has large scratches. Claire has a flashback of herself scratching Rousseau's arm during the night in the forest. However, Claire doesn't remember when or why she had been with Rousseau in the first place. Soon after, the group runs over to where Claire had been yelling, only to find her on the ground with a wound on her head. Claire's baby is gone, along with Rousseau. Saeed tells them he might know where she's going, and the group heads off in that direction. While running, Saeed and Charlie stumble upon the plane that Locke had found. Saeed throws one of the nun statues onto the ground and it breaks open, showing off the bags of heroin that fall out of her. Saeed continues, but Charlie continues to stare at the heroin. Mines in the ground begin exploding in the trail following Jack and the others. Locke calmly takes off his backpack full of dynamite and walks toward the explosions. Like a badass. He gets knocked to the ground by one of the explosions, and he finds himself face to face with the monster. Locke gets up and sprints like I've never seen him sprint before. Jack runs after him, but Locke is dragged ruthlessly on his stomach through the jungle floor. Jack grabs onto him, stopping Locke from falling into a huge hole in the ground. Kate throws some dynamite into the hole, hoping that it will kill whatever has grabbed hold of Locke. They're then able to pull him out safely, with everybody in one piece. Rousseau is revealed to be the one who lit the log that caused the black fire. Charlie thinks that she's insane, calling her pathetic for what she's done. Charlie and Saeed bring Claire's baby back, and it's shown that Charlie did, in fact, take one of the Mary statues filled with heroin. But I'm sure we'll get into that later. Deeper within the jungle, Hurley finds the numbers that he's obsessed with engraved onto the metal. He demands that Locke stop trying to open up the thing with dynamite. He does everything he can to stop the lighter, but Jack tackles him to the ground before Hurley can blow himself up. Once the deed has been done, Jack and Locke approach the open hatch to reveal a pathway deep underground with no sign of an end. At sea, the boys notice something beeping on their radar. They set off a flare gun in hopes of the item they're noticing coming back to them, and it does. But Jin notices that something is off. He tells them to be quiet, looking off into the ocean. A boat notices them and shines its light on the group. They cheer,
which is to be expected. But the dudes on the boat are given pretty weird vibes. They act mysterious, and then randomly say that they're going to have to take the boy from the group. They start shooting at the men, leaving Sawyer and Jin to jump into the water while they take Walt from Michael. They then throw a cup filled with gasoline onto the raft, blowing it up. Oh, wow. The first episode of Season 2 is called Man of Science, Man of Faith. It begins with a man we have not yet met getting ready in an 80s-style home. He wakes up, puts on a record, and does his dishes. He finishes up his breakfast smoothie and injecting what appears to be meds into his bloodstream when he hears a loud bang above him. Quickly, the man puts on a lab coat and military boots, enters a room filled with guns, and sets up camp. He's got a gun attached to the ceiling, pointing at a maze of different mirrors, all leading up to the hatch that Jack and Locke are now looking down into. Locke and Kate went to immediately go down into the hatch, but Jack warns them against it, as it's not even daytime yet. Locke and Kate refuse to listen, immediately going down into the hatch, but Kate mysteriously disappears about halfway down. Jack, being the hero that he always is, follows Kate down into the hole, winding up in the maze of hallways. He wanders into a massive room that appears to be a control room. He sees a computer with some code on it, and right as he's about to start clicking on the computer, Locke appears and says, "I wouldn't do that." Jack immediately points a gun at Locke, but he isn't the only one. A person unknown to them is doing the same to Locke on the side of his head. The gunman demands that Jack put his weapon down, and when he finally reveals his face, Jack seems to recognize him, as the two had met previously on a run in LA. Meanwhile, Shannon and Saeed go off into the jungle to find Vincent, Walt's dog that he left with Shannon. While searching, the two get separated, and Shannon sees Walt off in the distance. He's muttering the phrase, "Don't push the red button. Don't do it," but backwards, making it all the more creepy. When Saeed returns to find Shannon, she's lying on the ground, and Walt is nowhere to be seen. Episode 2 begins with us being able to see Locke's perspective of the hatch. He followed Kate down the hatch only to find her lying on the kitchen floor. Desmond, the gunman that Jack recognized, asks Locke if he's the guy. Locke, thinking on his feet, says yes, hoping that he can gain a little power over Desmond. But after being unable to answer Desmond's riddle, it's revealed that Locke is indeed not the guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Desmond begins to freak out when he starts hearing a beeping sound. He instructs Locke to insert the numbers, you know the ones, and Locke obliges, resetting Desmond's strange timer to 108 once more. Kate is told to tie Locke up, but after Locke explains that Kate is actually the fugitive, Desmond changes his mind and has Locke lock her up instead, with him secretly putting a knife in her pocket while he does so. Kate later escapes her binds and rummages around a bit, noticing that the food surrounding her is labeled Dharma, Department of Heuristics and Research on Material Applications. Kate doesn't know what Dharma stands for yet, so she eats one of their candy bars and continues moving forward. She ends up rummaging through the vents trying to find a way out. She sees Jack and yells for him, but the music that Desmond is playing is too loud for him to hear. Back in the ocean, Sawyer and Michael struggle with the situation that just happened to them. Losing Walt, not knowing where Jin went, and Sawyer's shot arm attracting sharks to their area. Eventually, the two conclude that the small fishing boat that they took Walt on is too small a boat to be that far out in the ocean, so it must have come from somewhere else. Perhaps the island itself. The boys eventually wash up on shore and are approached by Jin, who's yelling at the two frantically. They realize that Jin is saying that the others are coming. It's here that Sawyer and Michael realize that when Rousseau was saying that they were coming for the child, everyone assumed that she was talking about Claire's son. In reality, they had always been talking about Walt. Episode 3 begins with Locke, Jack, and Desmond's standoff. Kate finds the armory and loads a shotgun. She uses the butt of it to hit Desmond in the head, causing him to fire off some rounds into the computer that he had made Locke enter the number code into. Desmond starts freaking out about this, saying that if they don't get the computer fixed, then they will all surely die. Kate says that maybe Saeed can fix it, so she sets off to retrieve him. While Kate is away, Desmond explains to Locke and Jack that he was participating in a sailing competition when he crash-landed on the island. His friend Kelvin, at the time, took Desmond to the bunker and made him enter the numbers every 108 minutes or else the whole world would end. Without further explaining himself, Desmond puts on a type of welcoming video for Locke and Jack to watch. The film is titled The Dharma Initiative, Origin 3 of 6, meaning that there's several other videos that they don't have access to yet. It introduces the bunker as the Swan. The Swan was made to research the strange electromagnetic energy emanating from this part of the island. The task of the two researchers assigned to the Swan is to insert the numbers every 108 minutes until backup comes for them to swap out with somebody else. Jack thinks that the video is a bunch of bull, but Locke chooses to take the video at its word. Saeed, Hurley, and Kate enter the scene, and so Saeed tries to fix the computer. In the meantime, Desmond packs all of his things and dips out of there. probably relieved that someone else is finally there to type on the computer instead of him. The alarm goes off, warning them that they'll need to insert the numbers soon, but Hurley panics, telling the group that those numbers should never be used. They don't listen, and Jack finally gives in to Locke's delusions, clicking the execute button and allowing the 108 timer to begin once more. Meanwhile, Sawyer, Michael, and Jin are thrown into a pit. They evaluate their situation in hopes of figuring out how to get out of their current circumstances. Eventually, another prisoner is thrown in, who goes by the name Anna. She tells them that she crash-landed with the rear end of the plane on the other side of the island, and that she survived all by herself this entire time. Sawyer believes her and shows her his gun, telling her that he's going to find a way to get them out. With that information in mind, Anna steals his gun and then yells for the guards. They lift her, and it's revealed that she was with the others all along, only pretending to be one of the captives so that she could learn more information. Wow, she's good. Hurley is in charge of rationing out all of the food that was found inside the shelter, but gets stressed out when too many people find out and ask for food personally. Hurley does what he sees as the best case scenario and begins giving out all the food to anyone who wants it, so that he doesn't have to be in charge of it any longer. On the other side of the island, Michael, Sawyer, and Jin are slowly let out of their pit and are introduced to the others. They reveal themselves to be the tail section of the plane that had crashed, apologizing for scaring the men, saying that they were not sure of who they were or where they had come from, so they took precautionary action. The group leads them into their own bunker that they had found, also seemingly Dharma, this one being called the Arrow. It's much smaller than the Swan and less comfy, but it seems to be where the tail section had been taking refuge ever since they crashed.
Hey, man. It's okay. Son? You'll be with her again.
Episode 5 gives us some insight into the tail section of the island. After releasing Michael, Sawyer, and Jin from their hole, they treat them like complete freaks, separating themselves from them completely. This changes slightly when Anna decides that they will walk to their group instead, as in walking to the beach camp that we're more familiar with. She tells them that they're going to need to help them gather food before the journey, but Michael runs away whenever he gets his chance. He's searching for Walt, which is to be expected. The tail section survivors are acting much weirder than our familiar group, talking quietly to each other and being very cautious of where they go on the island. When questioned why they don't travel further into the jungle for fruit, they critically respond with them, as if there's something or someone that they're scared of that comes from within the island. Jin demands that he follow Michael, as he doesn't want to leave one of his friends behind. Mr. Echo, a kind man from the tail section, gives Sawyer a weapon along with Jin, and he decides to guide Jin deeper into the jungle to help him find Michael. Once in the jungle, Mr. Echo frantically tells Jin to hide with them. While under cover, they watch about a dozen human legs cross their path, not wearing shoes and legs covered in mud. Mr. Echo confirms that the people they saw were indeed the others, and that they're lucky Michael hadn't gone in the direction that they came from, hopeful that they haven't found him yet. Soon after their close encounter with the others, Michael reappears to Jin, telling him to leave him be while he searches for Walt and won't be rejoining any group until he does so. Mr. Echo and Jin have an intimate moment with Michael, a knowing and sad moment, trying to convince him to go back to the group, but he won't listen. They all head off in the same direction together, presumably to go search for Walt so that Michael won't have to do it alone. Shannon and Saeed's relationship begins heating up. Saeed builds Shannon a little hut to live in, and the two have a sleepover. Saeed comments about how he always wanted to protect her. It's pretty sweet. Things get slightly sticky when Shannon sees Walt again, standing near her and soaking wet. She screams for help, but the aspiration is gone by the time Saeed comes running back. He undermines what she saw to everyone else, making her look a bit crazy in the process, which one can imagine makes her feel like. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Mr. Echo, Michael, and Jin return to Anna and the tail section of the group. Echo informs Anna that they've witnessed the others and that they need to hurry on their journey so they don't pass near them. Anna asks him if he saw the children, to which he doesn't respond. When Anna is prompted to explain what she means, she tells them that they had a couple of kids crash with them, but the others kidnapped them and have not returned them since. Anyway, the group continues, eventually having to carry Sawyer on a stretcher due to his increasingly infected bullet wounds. After carrying him up a hill, the group notices that one of their members is nowhere to be found. At the same time, they begin to hear whispers. The group begins to run in fear of the others, horrified that they might be near. Back with Shannon and Saeed, their arguments continue, leading to Shannon asking Saeed why he doesn't believe her about Walt. She also gets vulnerable with him, saying that once they're rescued, she doesn't think that he'll still want her. Saeed reassures her, and the two embrace. When they look up, they see Walt once more, making a shushing motion and running off into the woods. Shannon runs after him with Saeed quickly in tow, but nothing could prepare the two for the bullet that sinks into Shannon's stomach. The episode ends with Anna looking at the couple
horrified, with a smoking gun in her hands. Damn, this show is ramping up. Episode 7, The Other 48 Days, gives us some perspective on the tail section survivors, highlighting what happened to their group while we've been observing the middle section survivors. Anna is the designated leader of the group, with Echo presumably being the muscle, as he was the one helping carry dead bodies floating in the ocean up onto the shore. It should be noted that one of the kids is seen holding a brown teddy bear, the same teddy bear that we saw one of the others holding when we were with Jin and Echo hiding in the bushes. The first night on the island, Echo is attacked by 2 members of the others. He kills the 2 of them and is found by Anna holding a large bloody rock in his hand. The next morning, one of the civilians who survived claims that 3 other people were kidnapped in the night. On day 12, 9 more people are taken from the group, including Zach and Emma, the 2 children who were with them. Anna becomes furious, as there have been no answers as to who is taking these people. While searching, she ends up finding a list inside one of the others' pockets, the one that they had killed. The list highlights the 9 people that they took, what they look like, and what they were wearing. Anna is suspicious, stating that they can't have a list of names since nobody knew each other's names at first. This makes her wary of the other members on the island, and soon she starts pointing fingers at Nathan, a dude who keeps going off in the jungle to go pee by himself, ignoring the buddy system and staying out for longer than a normal person would need. It's found out that the reason that the tail section survivors end up digging the pit is in case they find out who their suspected infiltrator is. Libby, one of Anna's trusted group members, and Anna both suspect that it's Nathan. Anna throws Nathan in, interrogating him, starving him in the process to try to get him to talk. She states to the group that she plans on torturing him the following day in order to find out some information about the missing children. That night, Goodwin, another suspicious dude in my opinion, helps Nathan out of the pit and feigns helplessness. Just when he points Nathan in the direction of the beach, Goodwin snaps Nathan's neck. The group leaves their area on the assumption that the others found them due to Nathan getting killed. They reach the Dharma bunker and head inside. Meanwhile, Anna asks Goodwin to go with her to try to find a signal on their radio. It's while on their journey that she realizes that Goodwin was an other, as his clothes weren't wet like everybody else when they crashed, and his memories of that day sound fake. She kills Goodwin, but before she finishes the job, she asks him why the others keep attacking and taking people. Goodwin responds with, "Everyone that was on that list was a good person, so everyone that wasn't taken must not be." Anna impales Goodwin with a stick and returns to the group, telling him they're safe now.
We're survivors of the crash of Oceanic Flight 815. Please copy.
We're the survivors of Flight 815.
Anna ties Saeed up and begins acting all freaked out and unwell as she feels guilty for shooting Shannon. Echo takes Sawyer to Jack and is taken down into the Swan. He notices that the group also has a Dharma area, that they also have a closet full of guns, which Echo seems weirded out by. Locke is down in the Swan already, and the 2 of them look at each other strangely. Echo tells Locke who they've killed, but when Locke asks if he can go to the scene of the crime, Echo blankly tells him no, presumably freaked out by their large access to the weaponry. Jack is furious about the entire situation, wanting to talk to whoever is responsible. Echo tells Jack Anna's name, and he seems taken aback as the 2 seem to know each other. Jack still wants to see Saeed, so he agrees to be taken to the area with Echo, but without any weapons or things to defend himself with. Meanwhile, Anna ends up untying Saeed and giving him a weapon, wanting him to take his revenge on her for what she's done to them. Saeed simply states, "What's the use in killing you if we're both already dead?" and walks off. The episode ends with Jack approaching Anna, the 2 of them staring at each other once in the same line of sight. Back with Kate. We learn some interesting information about her past in episode 9. Sawyer is passed out in the Swan, and Kate, for some reason, feels as though the spirit of her father is possessing him. She has a heart-to-heart with Sawyer, pretending that he is her father. Basically, Kate burned her house down with her father in it, as she's always believed him to be her abusive stepfather. She couldn't bear the thought of her abuser being a part of her very being, and wanted to be rid of him immediately. Sawyer wakes up and tells Kate that he heard every word that she said. But Kate is honestly relieved to not feel haunted by her past any longer, to finally get it out. Meanwhile, Locke wants Michael to listen to the video recording they'd watched with Sawyer and Jack. Echo overhears Locke and asks if he can see the video too. After watching, Echo doesn't say much about the film, but he confides in Locke not too long after. He gets biblical with him, talking about when the Old Testament was brought and combined with the New Testament, comparing it to him giving Locke a copy of the Bible that they had found. A Bible with a hole cut out in the middle, with the splices of the video that were cut out of there. Apparently, the tail section had found the tape, but had no way of playing its content, so Echo has kept it with him ever since. The 2 spliced the film back together and listened to the elongated version of the video. Turns out, the reason they aren't supposed to use the computer for anything else is that it can ruin the integrity of the project that they're working on. But the new video still doesn't go deeper into the incident. The episode ends with Michael hearing the warning sound on the computer. He's confused by this, because there are still about 50 minutes left before he's required to type in the code again. He walks over to the computer to find that someone has typed, "Hello?" He responds with, "Hello." The stranger asks, "Who is this?" Michael says that it's Michael. And the last thing the computer types is, "Dad?" Episode 10 revolves around Echo and the life he's lived up until now. A warrior. He's grown up killing, scheming, and essentially being controlled by others. His younger brother, Yemi, became a priest. One time, Echo was asked to help smuggle a large quantity of heroin outside of the country, so he asked Yemi to sign some papers, allowing him to fly the plane himself outside of the country on the premise that he was a priest. Yemi reluctantly does as his older brother asks, but before they could leave, the military shows up and starts shooting. They shoot Yemi in the crossfire, so Echo had frantically got him up into the plane with the drugs so that they could be free. Echo tried to follow, but his accomplice pushed him back into the ground before taking off. Echo was safe, considering he was wearing priest clothing and the military assumes that he is one. They ask him if he's alright, rather than detaining him like they should. On the island, Echo notices Charlie's Mary's statue, recognizing it as the one he stuffed with heroin. He smashes it open in front of Claire, displaying the heroin that was hidden inside. Charlie feebly attempts to play innocent regarding the heroin, but Claire is super duper suspicious. Then Echo demands that Charlie take him to the location of the fallen plane. Once there, Echo mourns the loss of his brother, and burns the plane down while reciting Psalm 23. Back inside the Swan, Michael continues to try and communicate with Walt, but is only given a few messages. "Come and get me," and "They're coming back soon," are some of Walt's messages. Jack sees Michael distressed and reassures him that they'll get his son back as soon as they possibly can. Little does Jack know the messages behind the screen that are unknown to him. The episode ends with Charlie and Echo returning to the camp. Charlie apologizes to Claire for the heroin inside the statue, but Claire instructs Charlie to leave her and Aaron, the baby, alone. Charlie heads off to a secret location in the woods, where he appears to be keeping an entire stash of Mary statues. He adds yet another that Echo gave him to the pile, bringing the total to 7 statues. I don't know that much about drugs, but I feel like that's a lot of heroin. Michael gets more serious about finding Walt in episode 11. Jack wakes up to find Michael pointing a gun at him, insisting that he must leave now to see his son. He locks Jack and Locke into the armory so they don't try to stop him, and he dips. Later, Kate wakes Sawyer up so that Jack can change his bandages. The two head down into the Swan to find Jack and Locke arming themselves and talking about going after Michael. Sawyer decides to join them, claiming that it's so that he can have his doctor near him. Totally not because he's bored out of his mind. Yeah, right. Kate wants to leave too, but Jack, being overly controlling as per usual, demands that she stay and watch over the button. Deep in the jungle, the 3 men hear about 7 gunshots off in the distance. They also find markings in the tree from where the gunshots were fired. They continue forward, but lose Michael's track come nightfall. Eventually, the 3 are approached by the man on the boat who shot at Sawyer. Sawyer is furious with him, but shuts up when he gets shot at once more. This time, the bullet just grazes his ear. Back at the Swan, it should be noted that Kate is no longer there, and Hurley assumes that she went with the boys as well. In the jungle, the bearded gunman announces that Walt is fine, and Michael won't find them. He then has all of his other members light up torches, completely engulfing them in calm firelight. He tells the men that they're essentially trespassing on their land. If they take one more step, they're going to be in big trouble. He goes on to inform them the only reason they've been allowed to live on the island for this long is because they let it happen. He then presents Kate to the boys, which surprises them all. He tells them that they can have her back only if they present the guns that they have to them. They comply, obviously, because they have to. And Kate isn't completely in the clear, with Jack giving her a grueling parental talk on the way back to the beach, and leaves her at her housing area. He then goes to Anna and demands to know how long it would take them to create their own army. Episode 13 gets a little messy within their camp. Sun is attacked while in her garden that she's been working on since landing. Someone drops a heavy bag on her head, and she's dragged into the forest. She's found by Sawyer, who says she was left with her arms tied behind her back and unconscious. Jack begins tending to her while Sawyer and Kate observe the scene. A lot of the people on the island assume that it was the others who caused the commotion, but Sawyer isn't convinced. There are tracks from where Sun was attacked, and the others never leave any. The bag used was not at all similar to the one used on Kate, and the others also don't normally leave the person they're trying to grab out in the open and still alive. Sawyer's ultimate accusation is that someone on their side of things is trying to scare the people into joining their little army, meaning Jack or Anna would be behind the attack. Kate begins to believe Sawyer and attempts to inform Jack of the possibility, but he isn't having it. Sun eventually wakes up and tells everybody that she doesn't remember a single thing from the attack, leaving Jack to believe that it must be the others. Kate freaks out, knowing in her bones that Anna is up to something, probably just wants access to all their guns. She instructs Sawyer to warn Locke, who's down in the Swan as per usual, pressing the button and guarding the guns. when Sawyer warns him. Locke decides to take all the guns to a different location completely, saying that it would be too easy for them to have access even if he changed the lock on the safe door. Jack approaches Locke and begins arguing with him about it. This doesn't last long as they are soon interrupted by gunshots. Sawyer makes his presence known, rifle on his back. He makes a speech to the whole camp that while he was gone on the raft trying to help everybody, they stole all of his items and divided them among themselves. When he returned, he got none of it back and was ridiculed for trying to get the medicine back that was originally in his stash. He conned them all so that he could have access to and ownership over their entire armory. He's tired of being told what to do by Jack and Locke, and that from now on, everyone will have to come to him for weapons, which in turn allows him to have a sense of power over the others. Kate asks Sawyer later that evening why he did what he did, and he responds, basically saying that just some things never change. He's always going to be a con man, and she'll always be a runner, taking a jab at her once more. The episode ends with Charlie and Sawyer having a slight alliance with each other, revealing that Charlie was actually the one who attacked Sun to set the plans in motion. Rousseau makes her appearance known to Saeed and leads him to a dangling prisoner that she believes to be an other. She insists that Saeed interrogate him, to which he agrees. Saeed brings him back to the Swan and has Jack fix him up a bit. He then gets to business. Jack stops the interrogation, believing that the man is not an other, that Saeed is just being cruel because he's scared. On the sidelines, Jack wouldn't let Locke enter the numbers in time if he did not let him into the armory, where the interrogation was taking place. Locke inevitably lets him in since Locke believes that if they don't enter the numbers, well, something horrible is going to happen. However, Locke was so freaked out by how close the time was to the end that he messed up the number sequence and did not click the button in time. A loud noise begins to sound, and the numbers on the computer screen turn into weird hieroglyphics. Locke manages to click the number sequence afterwards, making the number go back to normal, and the timer reset to 108. Phew, that was close. Episode 15, titled Maternity Leave, hones in on Claire and her baby issues. She wakes up in the middle of the night, noticing that Aaron has a rash and a fever. She wakes up Locke, insisting that she must go to Jack's so that he can figure out what's wrong with the baby. Locke tells Claire to wait there, and he's going to go get Jack, since it's dark and he doesn't want her going into the forest by herself. While the real reason is that the captive is still down in the Swan, they don't want anybody going down there. Claire waits dutifully on the beach, but is approached by Rousseau, who, if you don't remember, tried to take Claire's baby when she first had him. Claire yells at Rousseau to leave, but she seems to be there only to tell Claire that her baby has been infected. A flashback plays of the others trying to inject Claire's stomach with a vaccine, and of Rousseau saying, "I just don't want them to get sick." Kate runs up to Rousseau, demanding that she leave at once. She's not welcome inside their camp. She complies. But Claire is already worried that something might truly be wrong with her baby. The following morning, Claire approaches Libby, one of the girls from the tail section, who's becoming more prevalent now. She asks if Libby was a shrink. Libby laughs and owns up to the title, saying that before the island fiasco, she was indeed a clinical psychologist. Libby tells Claire that while she may think she has amnesia, her brain probably just blocked out everything that happened to her because it was too horrible to remember. Claire asks Libby if she can help her unblock the memories, and Libby obliges. During their session, Claire remembers being in what looks like a hospital-type room. Ethan, the other, who hung Charlie and pretended to be one of the islanders, is giving her a baby exam. He takes some medicine out of the cooler and tells her that it's for the baby. In real time, Claire freaks out and begins screaming on the beach. Kate runs up to her and demands to know what's happening. Claire tells Kate that in her visions, it was Ethan trying to inject her with something, that whatever room they were in had a bunch of medicine that might be able to help her baby. She must go and find it. Kate agrees to go with Claire, reaching out to Sawyer and acquiring a gun just in case something goes south. Claire wants to find Rousseau. She believes she will know the hidden location of the medicine. Claire has another vision, this time of Ethan leading her out of the doctor's room and into a little boy's nursery bedroom. Claire is excited to see all the cool things for her baby, but is confused as to where they all came from. While talking, another man calls Ethan over to him. He mumbles something like, "We were supposed to make a list and then bring them in. Do you have any idea what he's going to do to us when he finds out what you've done?" Before Claire can hear any more of the conversation, the man notices Claire listening and closes the door in her face. Claire's next flashback is of Ethan asking Claire if she's sure about the others taking her baby. She's clearly on drugs. When Ethan gives Claire something to drink, she comments about it being sour, also pointing towards something fishy going on with the substances that they've been giving her. We're not shown her response to the question about Aaron. In between flashbacks, Claire, Kate, and Rousseau have been traveling to the location that Claire had scratched Rousseau, with Rousseau under the impression that Claire remembers all of her memories. Once there, Claire starts acting very rude towards Rousseau, saying that she needs to take her all the way back to the facility in her vision. This enrages Rousseau, as Claire has it all wrong. Rousseau didn't try to take her back to Ethan. She was trying to save her from the others. Claire's last flashback ensues, and it begins with a younger woman shaking Claire awake. She's frantically telling Claire that she must leave their bunker or else Ethan and the others will cut her baby out of her. A drugged Claire starts yelling for Ethan, but before any of the others can hear the commotion, the young girl knocks Claire out with what appears to be a chloroform rag. Claire wakes up in the jungle with Rousseau next to her. Claire insists to Rousseau that she's sure about giving the others her baby, probably because they brainwashed her into thinking that it will be a better life for the baby in the long run. She wants to call out to Ethan when she hears him yelling for her in the woods. She attempts to draw his attention, but Rousseau tries to keep her quiet. The two get in a scuffle, with Claire scratching down Rousseau's arm and Rousseau knocking Claire out with the butt of her rifle. After waking up from her last vision, Claire apologizes to Rousseau for all the horrible things that she assumed about her. She then tells Rousseau that the girl who woke her up and saved her was different from the others. Kind, courageous, with dark hair and blue eyes, also younger than the rest. That she saved her just like Rousseau did. Claire is saying all of this to hint to Rousseau that perhaps her missing daughter is still alive and well. Rousseau thanks her for her kind words, but leaves Claire and Kate gaping. She tells her that she wishes Aaron well, but if he's infected, that Claire needs to know what to do. Meaning if Aaron is actually infected, she's going to need to kill him for the sickness not to spread. Oof. Meanwhile, Jack and Locke and Saeed still don't quite know how to proceed with their current prisoner. He goes by Henry, and he insists to them that he and his wife crashed in a hot air balloon a few weeks back. Nobody quite believes him. Echo overhears that they have a prisoner when he approaches the Swan to grab tools to help him cut down some wood. Echo confronts Jack about their current prisoner and asks if he can speak to him. Jack at first refuses, but after Echo subtly mentions blackmailing Jack into it, he gives in. Echo and Henry's conversation isn't that important. It's just Echo confessing to killing some of the others and apologizing to Henry if he is indeed one of them. The episode ends with Locke having a sit-down talk with Henry, and Henry getting under Locke's skin after mentioning the power dynamic between him and Jack.
Episode 16 begins with Locke approaching Ana Lucia about their current situation with Henry. He wants her to speak with him due to her experience with the others in the past. She agrees, goes down to talk to him, and finds the same information that he already gave the others. He urges her to create her own map of where Henry says the balloon that crashed is located so they can finally start believing him. Anna does just that, and brings along a crew of people with her to the supposed balloon. The crew being Saeed and Charlie. Meanwhile, Sun finds out that she's pregnant. She takes a pregnancy test that was found on the plane, and later that evening tells Jin the information. And he's excited, surprisingly. Sun is confused, though, because she's never been with another man, and Jin is supposed to be infertile. Jin doesn't think much of this, though, convinced that her conception must be a happy miracle.
임신이요, 여보.
The episode ends with Henry joking with Locke and Jack about the map that he gave Anna for his balloon. He finds it humorous that the two men didn't know anything about it, given that they're the island's supposed leaders. He goes on to point out the fact that if he was in Other, then he obviously would have given her a map to be ambushed, rather than to find some silly balloon. Next, something strange happens in episode 17. Locke is in the Swan when, suddenly, a distorted female voice begins counting down. Upon reaching 0, emergency bars slam down, trapping Locke in the living quarters of the Swan. To get out, his main concern being that he won't be able to click the button in time if he's trapped for the time being, he enlists the help of Henry. He bribes Henry with the promise that he won't let any physical harm come upon him from here on out if he only helps Locke out of the emergency bars. Henry complies, but before Locke can crawl to safety, the bars slam down onto his legs, pinning him to the ground. With great effort, Henry puts some weights under the bars, relieving Locke's legs, but only slightly. With Locke still pinned down, the warning alarm starts beeping on the code machine. Locke tells Henry that he must crawl through the air vents to put in the code, but while attempting to crawl up the vent, Henry falls and knocks himself unconscious. Thankfully, Locke yells Henry back to consciousness and he continues his urgent mission. Henry is successful in entering the codes, but something strange occurs shortly after. The whole room turns a kind of UV purple light, with a huge map illuminating on the wall that is currently smushing Locke into the ground. He stares at it for as long as it's lit up, but eventually goes away. Each of the emergency bars lifts, freeing Locke from his torment. Henry helps Locke up, leaving the two to be bombarded by Anna, Jack, Charlie, and Saeed. Saeed announces that they were able to find his balloon in the exact spot that he described it in, and the grave that they were told was his wife's. But Saeed still wasn't sure, so he dug up the grave, where his wife was supposed to be, lay a man with an ID on him labeling him as Henry Gale. Nothing much happens in episode 18. Locke angrily talks to Henry, who tells Locke that he never did push the buttons. He just stood there until the hieroglyphics popped up. After the hieroglyphics faded, the timer reset to 108 minutes by itself. Locke doesn't believe him, but is intrigued whenever Henry tells him that even God can't see the island. Meanwhile, Saeed and the others are conflicted as to how they should approach the current situation, with it escalating to the point of Saeed attempting to shoot Henry, but Anna diverting his shot right at the last moment. Oh, and a fun little relationship update. Hurley and Libby are officially dating. Kinda cute. Episode 19 begins with Locke attempting to retrace the map that he had seen on the barred door, while at the same time, Jack tells Henry that he plans to hold him for ransom, telling the others that they'll give them Henry back if they give them Walt. Instead of acting in any sort of way, Henry confidently and calmly states that they will never return Walt. Frustrated, Jack decides to go off into the woods, inviting Kate to go with him. He's searching for the others, and he doesn't plan on returning until he finds them. The two travel to where they had seen the others before, but instead of finding them, they find an exhausted Michael, who collapses into their arms. Things heat up in episode 20. Anna is giving Henry some cut-up fruit when he suddenly attacks her, almost choking her to death. Henry yells at Anna, saying that she's the true killer of the island since she killed two of the others so far. He revealed that the two people she killed were good, but they hadn't done anything to her. Locke shows up in time to knock him out before too much harm can come to her, but the encounter spooks her for sure. Once Anna is gone, Locke confronts Henry about his decisions on helping him, as opposed to the other people. Henry simply responds, saying that Locke is one of the good ones, and he was planning on bringing Locke back with him when he was captured. This reference to good people correlates to when the others had a list of good people that they were trying to take away from the large island group. Before he can say more, the two are interrupted by Jack and Kate bringing Michael back down into the hatch. Later, Jack and Sawyer realize that Anna stole a gun from Sawyer. Jack begins to panic. Down in the hatch, Michael notices Anna sitting by herself outside the weaponry bunker. She tells Michael that she had gone in to kill Henry, but was unable to complete her task. She tells him that she's tired of killing people and tired of living on the island. Michael offers himself up instead, saying that he'd like to kill one of the others since they'd taken his own son. He proceeds to ask for the code to the armory, and after she tells him, he looks at the gun questionably, seemingly pondering his next decisions. After a long pause, he looks Anna dead in the eyes and mutters, "I'm sorry." He then proceeds to shoot her in the chest. Libby walks in, gathering blankets for her and Hurley's picnic date that she had been planning. She screams at Michael in confusion, but before she can say much, he shoots her several times in the chest as well. He then opens up the armory, making eye contact with Henry before shooting himself in the shoulder. Our 21st episode, labeled question mark, leaves me feeling, just as described, completely confused. As we know now, the island speaks to its residents in strange ways, presenting information in visions and dreams. Well, it's Echo's turn now. He has a dream of Anna and of his brother, who mentioned asking Locke to take him to the question mark they had found in the hatch. They also tell him to bring an axe for the road. Commotion is occurring down at the hatch, and this becomes apparent to Echo as soon as he gets close. Michael is staggering out of the hatch, claiming that he got shot by somebody that he doesn't know, and stating that Henry has fled the armory. Upon investigation, Jack finds Libby on the floor, still barely alive, and he begins tending to her. He instructs Kate to go with Sawyer to collect some of the heroin from the stash of Mary statues, so that Libby can feel less pain than she's currently in. Meanwhile, Locke volunteers to go after Henry. Echo, remembering his instructions from his dream, asks Locke if he can join him since he knows how to track as well, with Locke reluctantly allowing him to tag along. Locke is unable to get a trail on Henry, so Echo pretends that he does, allowing the two to go deeper into the jungle. It doesn't take long, however, for Locke to realize that Echo is actually fully. Before Locke leaves him out of frustration, Echo proclaims his wish to see the question mark and shares his dreams with Locke. Locke continues with Echo on the premise that he believes the island to be special in the ways that it interacts with its guests. The two eventually come across the plane that Boone and Locke had originally found, the one that led to Boone's death. As the two rest here, Locke has a peculiar dream. In it, he sees Echo chasing his brother up some vines hanging off of a cliff. While finally making it all the way up to the top, Echo sees his brother who says, "John, wake up." This startles Echo, and he falls off the cliffside, leaving Locke startled and gasping for breath as he wakes up in the real world. Echo, excitingly, wonders if he had a dream of his brother, to which Locke admits. He tells Echo what happened in said dream, leaving Echo to frantically climb up the same vines that Locke saw. Once at the top of the cliff, Echo looks down at Locke and notices a giant question mark directly above the fallen plane. The two do some searching and find that there's actually another hatch. Echo brings it open using the axe that he was told to bring, allowing them to head down to the dark abyss that lies before them. Once down there, they find observation TVs, notebooks, 2 chairs, and a suction passage, like the one used for checks at the bank. Locke turns all the TVs on, and they find that the Swan is being constantly watched by cameras, leading them to their current room. After some thorough snooping of the bunker, Echo finds yet another orientation tape. In the tape, they're told that no matter how small a detail, they are to write every single thing they observe from the subjects in the Swan. The members of the Swan have been told to do a certain specific task, or something very bad will happen, allowing the observers to understand how the Swan members would react to such a thing. Once the 2 observers are done with their 8-hour shift, they are to return to their barracks and wait for their instructions. And once they complete writing in one of the many notebooks that have been provided, they are to roll it up and pass it into the suction device so that it can be directly shipped to the workers of Dharma. This upsets Locke. Like, really upsets him. Locke has cared the most about pressing the button, believing everything the Swan orientation video told him and worshipping the island like an all-knowing god. The Pearl, the name of the observation bunker, has completely altered Locke's mindset and made him think of himself as more of a fool than anything else. That's when Echo gives Locke the pep talk of his life. What are the odds that Echo was able to put his brother's cross necklace back onto his own neck after all this time? How is he seeing his brother on the island of all places at a time like this? He then looks Locke dead in the eye and proclaims that if Locke doesn't feel the need to push the button anymore because everything is meaningless, then he will. The episode ends with Libby waking up while Jack and Hurley are hovering over her. She says one word, Michael, before she takes her last breath. Unfortunately, her truth does not get revealed as Jack assumes she was just worried about Michael since he was supposedly shot alongside her by the assailant. Episode 22 dives deeper into Michael's journey throughout the jungle when he was by himself for a while. About 13 days earlier, Michael knocked Locke out so that he could have some time messaging Walt on the code computer. In his flashback, Walt tells Michael that he's being held in a strange-looking rock. Michael tells Walt that he's on his own to his location, running into Jack on his way out. Jack asks what Michael's doing, to which Michael starts yelling about his right to search for his son, then locks Jack in the room with the passed-out Locke. In the woods, Michael runs into some of the others, one being the bearded man who originally took Walt from him. They wrestle Michael into captivity, taking him back to their base. Once there, he meets Alex, Rousseau's daughter that she's been searching for, and the young woman who helped Claire escape. Shortly after, Kate is thrown in with him, showing us their point of view of episode 11, The Hunting Party. Jack bargains for Kate's freedom, and they don't even know that Michael is there because he was told to stay quiet. While the ransoming takes place, Alex asks Michael if Claire is okay and if she's had her baby, but Michael's too stunned to speak. When the bearded man comes back, they knock Michael out cold. 2 days later, Michael arrives with the others at their supposed campsite, with huts and the strange rock that Walt had mentioned earlier. It's here that Michael is introduced to Bee, a seemingly kind woman who knows information about Walt's whereabouts but has no intentions of telling Michael anything. She sees Michael as less than, questioning his ability to be a father and saying that for somebody who wants to see his son so badly, he sure doesn't know a lot about the young man. About a week after that encounter, Michael is finally able to talk to Bee again. She presents him with Walt under the condition that he bring them back one of their own, referring to Henry. She then gives Michael 3 minutes to talk to Walt. The two are finally reunited. Walt starts rambling about how the others aren't who they say they are, that they're just pretending. But before we can get any more information about what Walt meant by that, Bee comes back in and threatens Walt with the room if he does not stop speaking about them. This scares Walt, making him shut up. Walt and Michael embrace before they take Walt away once more. Michael promises that he'll bring Henry back to them, knowing now that Walt is alive and well. Bee then gets a little greedy with her request. She tells Michael that he'll also need to bring her Jack, Kate, Sawyer, and Hurley if he wants Walt to be free. Michael's a little taken aback by this, but agrees under one condition. If he succeeds in bringing them the people that they've listed, he wants Walt back, and the boat that they own. Back in the present time, Michael tells Jack that it is just him, Sawyer, Kate, Jack, and Hurley who are to go after the others to find Walt. Obviously, when Saeed gets involved in their plan, after briefly asking about the group's mission, Sawyer invites him to come, which annoys Michael. But to not raise suspicion, he doesn't say much about it. However, later on, Michael confronts Saeed and tells him that he'd like for him not to join since Michael is planning a rescue and Saeed is planning a revenge. Saeed, being the reasonable man that he is, agrees, quietly conceding and allowing the others to go on without him. Later, Hurley tells the group that he won't be joining them, since he doesn't really have a reason to. Michael continues to push Hurley into going, reminding him that the others are the ones who killed Libby. Yeah, let's ponder that one, shall we, Michael? At the funeral, Hurley changes his mind, perhaps reminded of Libby's gruesome death. Meanwhile, Saeed pulls Jack to the side and informs him that he's actually quite suspicious of Michael. He then proceeds to lay out his entire plan. Saeed tells Jack that they shouldn't tell Michael that they know of his plans, assuming that he's trying to lure Jack into a trap, but rather keep Michael close so that they can learn more clues as to what is actually going on. Elsewhere, Charlie resolves the Aaron being sick situations, showing Claire that he had saved a bunch of vials of vaccine for the baby. He hadn't been able to show Claire any of this since she's been giving him the cold shoulder following the reveal of his past and current heroin problem. Later in the episode, Charlie finds Sawyer's remaining heroin stash and throws all of it into the ocean, turning a new leaf. Good for you, Charlie. The episode ends with everybody noticing a sailboat near the shore. Sawyer, Jack, and Saeed frantically swim to the boat, pistols in hand. Once on it, the men hear singing from inside. Shots are fired at them from below, but none hit their target. They kick down the hatch door, revealing Desmond, the man that they had originally found in the Swan, entering the code. He's drunk off his ass, and his hair's a mess. That night, Jack asks him why he came back after running away from them all. Desmond laughs at Jack, saying that he didn't come back on purpose. He's been sailing ever since he left, sailing in one direction hoping to get away. But every landmass he's ever seen is just this island, leading him to become drunk and completely insane. We were then shown a Desmond flashback. He got dishonorably discharged from the army, getting picked up immediately after by Widmore, the father of the person that he loved at the time. Widmore will become more important in the show later. For now, in Desmond's flashback, he's been keeping Desmond's love letters out of reach from his daughter, informing Desmond that she's to be married to somebody else, and that he'll offer him obscene amounts of money if he promises to never reach out to her again. Years later, Desmond is shown trying to acquire a sailing boat so that he can compete in Widmore sailing around the world competition. His goal? Beat Widmore at his own game, look super cool in front of his daughter, and win her back over with his sailor charm. During his sail, Desmond is caught in a horrific storm. He goes into the boat to stay safe and ends up washing up on the shore of the island. A man in a yellow hazmat suit takes him from the beach and puts him into the Swan. The man introduces himself as Kelvin. He shows Desmond the orientation video and appoints him to be Kelvin's new partner in inserting the code. When Desmond asks Kelvin about his hazmat suit, he explains that he must wear it when outside so that he doesn't get infected. He then shows Desmond vials of medicine, informing him that he'll be needing to inject himself with the vials every 9 days, assuming that he's been infected since he was on the beach for quite some time. While in the Swan, for over 2 years, Desmond notices Kelvin triggering fake lockdowns to draw out the map on the door, the same door that Locke had seen. Desmond begins to get frustrated, saying that he should be able to go outside if he pleases, especially since he was in the army. Kelvin laughs at this, saying that he was in the army too until he decided to join the Dharma Initiative. Kelvin sarcastically reminds Desmond that, unlike him, he wasn't dishonorably discharged because he couldn't follow simple orders. Several days later, Desmond finds Kelvin drunk, ignoring the beeping sounds of the alarm, and in an underground bunker that Desmond is not familiar with. He's with a key that's in a lock titled Caution System Termination. Kelvin tells Desmond that behind the wall is an electromagnetism anomaly that is unique to the island, that there are none found like it in the entire world. Do you remember the incident that was the highlight in the original Swan orientation video? The one where the guy explains that if they don't press the button every 108 minutes that another detrimental incident will occur? Well, apparently, it's because the electromagnetic field that protrudes from that secret hatch is so immense that it starts building up energy in 108 minutes. Each time they click the button, setting in the code, it supposedly discharges the energy before it can get too big. Later, on a different day, Desmond watches Kelvin leave with his hazmat suit on, but notices a large tear in the side of it. He follows Kelvin outside the hatch and witnesses Kelvin taking off the suit completely. Desmond then follows Kelvin through the jungle, eventually leading to his sailboat. It's repaired and ready to go, which enrages Desmond greatly as he would have been able to sail away long ago. Kelvin admits to Desmond that he's been secretly going out of the Swan to repair the boat, hoping to leave the island and abandon Desmond there to finish his button pressing by himself. Desmond is so mad that he resorts to physical violence, accidentally smashing Kelvin's head with a large rock. Desmond runs back to the Swan, realizing that nobody was there to click the buttons, and the alarm system is going full blast. Electromagnetic items begin flying through the air, freaking out Desmond further. He inserts the numbers, and everything appears to go back to normal. A while later, Desmond contemplates suicide, but before he can do anything too crazy, he hears someone banging on the hatch from the outside. That someone being Locke when he was first angry about Boone's death. This rejuvenated Desmond's determination, knowing that soon he could hand off the task of pressing the button to somebody else. Back to the present time, while everybody's talking to Desmond, Saeed is excited that they now have a sailboat on their hands. Saeed still doesn't trust Michael, so to spy on them, Saeed wants to flank the sailboat off to the side near the others' camp so he can light black smoke and attempt to intimidate them for once. Jack agrees. Saeed brings Jin and Sun along with him. Upon reaching where the others' camp should be, according to Michael's direction, they find a completely abandoned station. The jungle team heads towards the others in accordance with Michael, but while they're on their way, it becomes apparent that Jack is very suspicious when Michael tries to shoot a large bird. It's revealed that there's no ammo in his pistol. Deeper into the jungle, the group realizes that they're being stalked by 2 others. Jack then tells the group about Saeed's distrust of Michael and the reasoning as to why. Michael ends up admitting to this, telling him who he killed and why he's led them there in the first place. Really gets pretty freaked out, announcing that he'd like to go home quickly so he doesn't get caught up in this whole mess. But Jack, now freaked out because of the others that they had seen, emphasizes the need for them all to stay together if they want to stay alive. They must pretend like they trust Michael, or else they may all be killed. Soon after, the jungle party sees Saeed's smoke signal, but it's super far away, meaning Michael lied about the other's location. The group is then ambushed and tranquilized. Later, the group wakes up tied to a pier, with a man named Tom and Bee, the woman that Michael had met earlier, standing above them. Henry makes his first appearance once more, ordering the others around and showing the islanders his true ranking as their leader. Michael is awarded Walt and their boat, along with instructions on how to leave the island. To leave, he must sail towards 325 degrees, which is the only way out. There's no possible way back in. Henry then tells Hurley to go back to his side of the island. The only reason he was brought along with them was because Henry wanted Hurley to tell the rest of their island group to never approach again. Inside the Swan, Echo and Locke continue their button-pushing moral compass quarrel. Locke demands that they let the timer run out to see what happens. Obviously, Echo doesn't want to do this, causing the two to argue, and Locke attempts to destroy the computer instead. Their argument results in Echo locking Locke out of the hatch, giving him optimal time to talk to Desmond about the button instead. Desmond is curious about Locke's ideas of the button being fake, so the two decide that tomorrow they're going to make sure not to click it to see what happens. While chatting, Locke tells Desmond about the Pearl, the surveillance, and everything else that he had seen there. He even tells them about the printer that printed out a bunch of numbers, the same numbers as the date that their plane crashed. Desmond is shocked by this, because it's the same date that he didn't click the buttons and killed his friend. He concludes the electromagnetic fluctuations caused by the power not being released in time might be the reason that their plane crashed. Locke and Desmond continue to argue until the time when they're supposed to be clicking the button. Locke wins, allowing the timer to reach 0. Magnetic items begin flying through the air, and Desmond does the only thing he knows how to do. He flips the fail switch key, causing a large explosion. Bright white and violet light fill their space, and the entire island sky. The episode ends with two Portuguese men seeing electromagnetic error reading on their GPS machine. They call a woman named Penny, it's Desmond's ex-girlfriend. The only thing that they say is, "We think we found it." The first episode of Season 3 is called A Tale of Two Cities. It opens with Jack waking up on a table in a holding cell with a band-aid on his inner elbow. He sees a door on the opposite side of the room but collides with a glass wall. Jack shouts for Kate, but there's no reply. Kate wakes up in the bathroom with Tom, one of the people in charge of the others, towering over her. He offers shower supplies, tells her to take a shower. She won't shower in the room with him, to which he jokes that she's not his type, and leaves. She too has a band-aid on her inner elbow. Sawyer wakes in a cell outside that resembles a zoo cage. He sees another man in a similar cage, but the man won't speak to Sawyer. In his cage is a button with a fork and a knife on it. He presses it twice, and only a warning sound goes off. As he goes for the third press, the other prisoner warns him not to do it. He does it anyway and receives an electric shock.
Warning.
I wouldn't do that.
Back to Jack. He's messing with the chains on the ceiling when Juliet, a blonde woman who holds a certain authority to her, comes in and tells him to stop. She addresses him by name and introduces herself, saying that she will tell him where his friends are if he lets the chains go. He does not listen. When Kate exits the shower, she sees someone has taken her clothes and replaced them with a dress, which she reluctantly puts on. Tom, along with 3 others, brings her to the beach, where Henry is waiting for her at a table adorned with food, along with a pair of handcuffs. He says she must put on the handcuffs if she wants coffee. When Kate asks Henry why he's doing all of this, he replies that he had given her the dress so she could feel more like a lady, with fresh warm food to make her feel more at home. He'll let her see the beach because her friends are on the same beach, and allow her to use utensils to make her feel civilized. He says he gave her these nice sentiments to hold on to because the next 2 weeks will be very unpleasant. Over in Jack's cell, he hears static coming from the communication panel on the wall. The voice of his father comes through, saying to let it go. Suddenly, the light gets switched on, and Juliet is there with food. She wants to give it to him, but Jack won't move away from the door. She also mentions that the intercom hasn't worked in years. Jack lies to Juliet about his backstory, but does say the plane came from Sydney and gives the reason why he was on it. She leaves, eating the sandwich. In Sawyer's cage, the other man keeps asking questions about the survivors' camp, and then picks his lock, causing an alarm to go off. He picks Sawyer's lock and tells him to go the other way. Sawyer listens, but Juliet finds and tases him. Sawyer gets brought to his cage, and the prisoner Carl, who we later find out to be Alex's boyfriend, gets beaten very badly. Juliet convinces Jack to drink water because the drugs they gave him will have side effects. She seems to be a doctor, though it's not explicitly stated. When she enters with the tray, Jack attacks her, steals her taser. After dragging her to the hallway, he runs into Henry. Jack says to open the door or he's going to kill Juliet, but Henry says they'll all die if the door opens. Jack pushes her away and tries to open the hatch. Henry runs out of the room and leaves them trapped in there. Water floods the room through the hatch, but they're able to stop it. Juliet tells Jack to press a button, but knocks him out as he turns. Sawyer figures out how to work the water and food mechanism, but it's pet food. He starts drinking the water as Tom puts Kate in Carl's old cell. Jack figures out that the cage she's in was once an aquarium for dolphins at a Dharma station called the Hydra. Juliet reveals she knows everything about Jack's life. When she goes to the hallway, she sees Henry, who tells her she did a good job. She then reveals the real name of Henry. It's Ben. On board the Elizabeth, the boat that Deadman had brought onto the island, Saeed, Sun, and Jin all discuss the best course of action. Saeed suggests docking on a different side of the island because the mountains could be blocking Jack's ability to see their signal. They dock at the Pala Ferry dock, which Jin believes is run by the others, but Saeed reassures him that he's safe. While building the new fire, Sun notices that they made it quite large. Saeed reveals he believes the other group has been captured and plans to orchestrate an attack on the others. Jin demands a gun and says he knows English better than his wife thinks, is aware of the plan. The plan gets ruined when the others board the boat from the water instead of the jungle. Sun shoots one of the others named Colleen in the stomach and jumps off the boat. Back on the Hydra Island, the smaller island offshore from their main island that the others mainly reside on, Juliet brings Jack some soup, which he ignores. While Juliet and Ben are having a moment outside the cell, Colleen drops in and says Saeed has discovered the decoy village and has gained a sailboat. Others escort Kate and Sawyer to a quarry where they are forced to do manual labor. While working, Sawyer kisses Kate in act of defiance, which sparks a fight. Back at the cage, Sawyer tells Kate that he was testing the guard's strength, that the people didn't seem very used to violence. In the aquarium, Ben visits Jack. He wants Jack to change his perspective on things and introduces himself. Ben reveals that the others have access to the outside world by telling him things that have happened since the crash, which Jack does not believe. After showing Jack proof, he promises he'll get Jack home if he helps him when the time comes. Now, episode 3 focuses on Locke. We haven't seen him since the explosion, but it's obvious that he's unwell. He makes a sweat lodge in the middle of the church and does drugs to have a vision. He jumps out of the lodge and says he's going to save Mr. Echo's life. Charlie joins Locke to go search for Echo. While out, they find his cross and signs of a polar bear. This is bad, since Sawyer had already killed one previously. It was the only one they ever saw. They run into Hurley, who gives them a recap of what happened with the others. Locke finds Echo in a cave and rescues him from the polar bear using a makeshift flamethrower. Hurley finds Desmond, who says he woke up naked after the explosion. He tells Hurley not to worry because Locke said in his speech that he'd go after everybody, to which Hurley replies that Locke is only here for Echo, and Desmond apologizes. While Charlie gets water for Echo, John hallucinates Echo giving him advice. When they return to camp, Hurley explains that Jack isn't coming back because the others got him. Locke gives a speech saying he would go after and find everybody just like Desmond had told Hurley. When Hurley looks at Desmond, he's absentmindedly throwing rocks in the water. Episode 4 begins with Jack and Juliet having a conversation about Juliet's authority in camp. Jack has the assumption that she's below Ben, but she assures him that they're all in equal standing, but she begins to question herself. Their conversation gets interrupted by Ben frantically telling Juliet to come with him, as Colleen has been shot and has made her way back on their submarine. Okay, dude, like what don't they have? Sawyer is being Sawyer, even while in a labor imprisonment camp. Attempts to figure out a plan to kill Ben, thinking they'll be able to electrocute him, but he fails.
We turned it off.
Ben takes Sawyer to an operations table where he is painfully operated on. Upon awaking, he's forced to watch as they stimulate a rabbit. The rabbit dies after getting frightened, and the others tell Sawyer that he will die too if his heart rate goes over 140. They already placed a pacemaker in his heart, and it will kill him if he does anything stupid. They tell him that the same fate will befall Kate if he misbehaves, or tells anybody about his pacemaker, that they're going to be watching at all times. Later, Ben takes Sawyer on a walk, informing him that a pacemaker wasn't actually put on his heart. It's only a trick to make them feel as though they had some kind of control over him. It's unclear why Ben is telling him this, though, as it doesn't really seem to have any benefit. He then takes Sawyer up a large hill, showing him that their island isn't even part of the main island, so even if they escape, there's nowhere to go. Strange tension builds on Hydra Island between Jack and Ben. It becomes apparent to Jack that Ben has a spinal tumor. Ben didn't want Jack to know about this yet, but he saw the x-rays when Jack was rushed to Colleen to help her with her bullet wound. Jack makes sly comments to Ben about him needing him. Ben gets angry, trying to frustrate Jack by telling him that he purposely appointed Juliet to Jack because she resembles Jack's ex, Sarah. Later, Juliet approaches Jack once more. She plays To Kill a Mockingbird for Jack, while also giving him a speech about how great Ben is. Her voice and words urge Jack to help Ben with his surgery, but in the meantime, on the video recording, she's holding large white cue cards out of sight of the security cameras. On the cards, she wrote messages emphasizing her wish for Jack to kill Ben while on the operating table. She wants it to look like a mistake on Jack's part, but apparently, a lot of the others want change, meaning they too want him dead. She instructs Jack to stop the Mockingbird tape and to act slightly annoyed at her spiel, so he plays along. Back on the island, Locke takes leadership now that Jack is gone. He puts together a group of individuals, Saeed and some new people who haven't been relevant before, Nikki and Paolo. He wishes to head off to the Pearl in hopes of contacting the others to figure out how to save Jack, Sawyer, and Kate. They decide to also check on the Beechcraft that Echo has been involved in, since they can't find any trace of him on the island. The group runs into Echo, who is being frightened by something, the black smoke that has been whispering to people on the island. He joins the group and heads to the Pearl. Once inside, Saeed messes with the security cameras, and after fiddling with them for a while, the TV turns to a man wearing an eye patch. He appears to be watching the group of them, and when he sees them looking back, he quickly turns his camera off, turning the TV to black. While in the Pearl, Echo stays outside and is confronted by his dead brother. Echo confesses to an apparition of his brother, saying that he's not sorry for the sins that he's committed in the past, that he did the best with the life that he was given. His brother's apparition suddenly turns into the black smoke monster. Enraged, it slams Echo into multiple tree trunks and eventually smashes him into the ground. Locke and the others hear this going down from inside the Pearl and quickly go to see what all the commotion is. It's here that Echo mutters his very last words to Locke: "You're next." Locke tells the group that Echo died to the polar bear and insists on burying him here. Saeed goes with him to get shovels, and John shares that he doesn't know what that monster was. Jack gets Ben's medical exams and says Ben will die without surgery. Jack explains that he won't do surgery because he knows they won't hold up their end of the bargain. During Kate and Sawyer's shift at the quarry, an alarm goes off. Alex, Rousseau's biological daughter, charges in and shoots at the guards with a slingshot. She demands to see Carl, her boyfriend, but she gets dragged away, not before warning Kate that they will kill her boyfriend, just as they had killed Alex. Kate gets taken to Jack's cell in the Hydra, separated by a glass wall. Kate tells Jack he has to do the surgery or they're going to kill Sawyer. Jack gets mad at her and tells Ben to take her away. Back with Sawyer, Kate expresses her frustration about how much they want to hurt Sawyer. Then she climbs out of her cage and breaks the lock on his. This is when he breaks the news that they're on a separate island. He tells Kate that he just wanted her to have hope. When he says this, she charges forward and kisses him, and makes love to him. Oh man. Jack gets told through the intercom to try the door, and when he does, it opens. He finds a loaded handgun and walks past a monitor of Kate and Sawyer cuddling. He gets into his feelings about it, but Ben interrupts his moping and says that he would have picked her and Jack to get together instead. Jack finally agrees to the operation. I don't know, I think that's a little pathetic, right? Hey, if it's any consolation, buddy, I would have picked you over him. I don't know. During the operation, Jack cuts a small incision into Ben's kidney sac and knocks out the other guy in the room. He demands to speak to Kate via walkie-talkie. Back at the cage, Danny is preparing to kill Sawyer, but gets cut off with the walkie-talkie going off. Tom tells Danny to give the walkie-talkie to Kate, or else Ben is gonna die. When Kate gets the walkie-talkie, Jack tells her she has an hour head start. She needs to run. He then asks if she remembers the story you told her after the crash, which she does. He tells her to radio him once she's safe, and she can tell him the whole story. She says she can't leave without him, to which he says, "Kate, damn it, run." Aw, he really cares about her. Kate and Sawyer lock the others in the cages and escape. In the operating room, Juliet tells one of the others to get Danny and capture Kate and Sawyer. Jack gets pissed and tells Tom that Juliet told him to kill Ben. When she denies it, Tom kicks her out. Kate and Sawyer get chased into the woods by a group of others. Right when Kate is about to get shot by Jason, Alex hits him with her slingshot and leads them to her hideout. After talking to Ben, Juliet asks Jack to finish the surgery. Alex brings Sawyer and Kate to the jungle, where Aldo, the guardsman stationed there at the time, is guarding the door. They beat him up and find Carl being hypnotized. And I don't mean the cute hypnotization with like a therapist. I'm talking like IV in the arm, bright flashing lights in the eye, and a strange video and audio being played. Alex has promised Kate and Jack that she would take them to a boat if they helped her free Carl, her boyfriend. So the two do just that. Together, they break Carl out, and swiftly at that. The four of them head to the boat. It's revealed that Carl was trying desperately to escape the island, which is why he was being held prisoner. Once in the canoe, they would inevitably take them back to the mainland. Alex insists that Carl leave without her, claiming that Ben will never allow him to live if she stays with him. And with that, the group sails on. The episode ends with Jack demanding to know what Ben had said to Juliet, to make her ask Jack to actually go through with the medical procedure. She sadly admits that he'd said that he'd let her get off the island if she cooperated with the surgery. Defeated, she begins crying as she leaves Jack's cell. Episode 8 is called Flashes Before Your Eyes, and it highlights strange flashback occurrences that happen throughout the show. But for Desmond, these flashbacks seem much more real. Forthcoming, even. After he had turned the failsafe switch key, he had a long flashback to whenever he was trying to marry Penny. While picking out a ring for him, he is visited by a strange woman who tells him that he won't ever marry her, that nobody can cheat death. Back on the island, whenever Desmond wakes up, he acts a bit strange. While talking to Charlie, he suddenly begins sprinting towards the ocean, taking his shirt off and diving in with haste. He carries out a nearly drowned Claire and resuscitates her on the beach while Charlie watches from the side. Charlie's weirded out by Desmond acting strange and decides that he'll get Desmond drunk, so he'll confide in Charlie about what's really going on. After a long night of continuing to evade his questions, Desmond finally gives in, tells Charlie that he's been having strange premonitions. Premonitions of Charlie's death, not Claire's. Apparently, in his vision, Charlie was supposed to drown saving Claire, and he was also supposed to be struck by lightning, which is why Desmond is making a makeshift lightning rod. The episode ends with Desmond's cryptic foretelling that Charlie will inevitably die, but he can't escape his immediate peril for much longer. The next episode of Lost is pretty unimportant to the overall plotline, but we do find out some interesting information. For starters, while in captivity,
Jack overhears the sheriff of Hydra say that Alex needs to check her father, indicating that Ben has taken over as her father figure since she was a baby. Another interesting fact is that Jack sees Cindy, who's a stewardess on the plane. She tells Jack that she's with the others to watch. She's seen being close to a brother and sister, Jack and Emma, that the others had taken from their crash. These two have the same teddy bear that Michael had witnessed previously in the series when hiding from the others. Juliet asks Jack if he will help Ben once more, as she's currently in trouble for murdering someone to help Kate and Sawyer escape. She thinks that Jack helping Ben will help her case. Jack demands to see Ben, upset that Juliet is in trouble. He tells Ben that his stitches from the surgery are horribly infected, and the nurse who sewed them might as well be trying to kill him. Jack agrees to help with Ben's infection, but only if he holds up his end of the deal. If they help him, he has to let him go. With that, the group heads back to the barracks, the little abandoned village on the main island. The others are worried that Jack's friends will inevitably come looking for him in Hydra, and they'd rather not have all of them find out about their secret second island. Taking Jack back to the main island will distract them from Hydra and secure their sights on the mainland once more. Once Sawyer, Kate, and Carl are safe on the mainland, Carl tells Sawyer and Kate that the reason the others take children is that it gives them a better life than living on the island like barbarians. Later, Sawyer ends up releasing Carl, convinced that Ben will try to kill Carl eventually, and would rather him not be with the island group when he does. In reality, Sawyer just had a sit-down talk with Carl about love, and released him so that he could try and get back to Alex. Episode 10 delves deeper into Hurley's strange connection with luck. Hurley confronts Charlie about Desmond's strange premonitions of his death, and is convinced that he's the overarching reason behind it. Before he could beat himself up too harshly, Vincent, Walt's dog that is now being raised by the entire island, runs up to the group holding a decapitated arm that is still clasping keys in its hand. Hurley chases after Vincent, eventually finding the keys, noticing that they have a lucky rabbit's foot attached to them. The charm, I mean. It's ironic considering the circumstances, but whatever. Vincent leads Hurley to an overturned large blue van. Hurley asks people from the island to help him, but Jin is the only one to volunteer, probably because he had no idea what Hurley was saying. Back at the van, they find the skeleton that the detached arm belonged to. The skeleton wears a Dharma Swan workman uniform. While trying to move the skeleton out of the way, its head falls off and lands on a pile of Dharma documents, highlighting the blueprints to a winding road that they had planned for. Sawyer and Kate had returned to the beach, and Sawyer is annoyed that most of his stash of items is missing again. He finds Hurley and Jin demanding to get his stash back, gets distracted when Hurley offers him a large quantity of beer that he had found in the van, if he helps him and Jin overturn it. Hurley gets Charlie involved, hoping that the new quest will put some pep back in his step after finding out that Desmond constantly has visions of his death. Together, the four of them push the van down a hill, with Hurley in the driver's seat, convinced that with the van moving, he'll be able to start it up. And he actually does. He goes for a joyride, and all the boys involved have a sense of happiness and newfound hope in their murky island lives. On a more serious note, Kate is still on a Jack quest. She tells Saeed and Locke about what happened on the other island, but after a mute response, she decides that she has to find him herself. She goes off on her own, but Saeed and Locke eventually find her rummaging in the jungle at night. They ask Kate why she didn't ask for help, and she tells them that they didn't seem very motivated. However, they had no idea where to even begin looking. Suddenly, the group hears a gunshot, and they find Rousseau. Kate tells her about the young girl that she met named Alex, that she believes her to be Rousseau's lost daughter. Episode 11 begins with Locke leading the group with Echo's stick. He had engraved strange messages onto it, one saying 305, which is currently the degree that they're following. During their journey, Saeed goes off by himself to gather some fruit, and he ends up hearing a cowbell. The group follows the sound, and they find a small cabin accented with a large Seattle dish on top of the roof and a horse parked outside. Inside, they find the man with the eye patch, Mikhail, whom they saw watching them inside the Pearl surveillance room. While approaching the cabin, Mikhail shoots Saeed in the arm, screaming at them to leave him alone, and that they're breaking their truce by crossing his borderline. They yell at him, trying to explain that they're not who he thinks they are, that they have no idea what he's talking about. Locke and Kate jump Mikhail in the cabin, forcing him to drop his weapon and explain himself. Mikhail is sporting a Dharma jumpsuit, claims to be the last Dharma worker in existence. He offers to treat Saeed's wounds, being a bit apologetic for his outburst. He tells the group that he used to be in the Soviet army, but once the Cold War was over, he decided to answer an ad that he saw in the newspaper. He was stationed on the island 11 years ago, in his cabin labeled The Flame, which was originally used to contact the outside world. All of the Dharma initiatives were killed in an attack by the Hostiles, known by the flight survivors as the Others, or Them. The Hostiles released poisonous gas through the Dharma Initiative facilities, killing them all. He made a truce with the Hostiles, saying they'd stay in his cabin and not cross a perimeter line, and in return, they would allow him to live. He goes on to tell them that the Hostiles have been native to the island long before any of the Dharma scientists arrived. Mikhail goes to another room to bring them some iced tea, giving Kate and Saeed time to talk. While Locke plays chess with a computer, Saeed tells Kate that he believes Mikhail to be lying about his past, that he believes Mikhail to be another one who's just acting. He also points out that the stirrups on the horse outside are strung for someone much smaller than Mikhail, meaning that there must be somebody else there with him. To get this information out of him, Saeed tries provoking him whenever he comes back with the iced tea. He tells Mikhail how their group has killed the others in the past, which prompts Mikhail to attack both Saeed and Kate. Outnumbered, Saeed, Kate, and Locke knock him out and can tie him up. Saeed and Kate find a hatch underneath a rug and decide to go down into it, while Locke stays upstairs and watches over Mikhail in case he wakes up. Locke disregards his task, being more intrigued in his online chess match that he was taking part in earlier. The computer beeps again, prompting Locke to come back, and he does. After checkmating, the computer comes up with different prompt options, asking Locke what he'd like to do moving forward. He clicks the numbers 3-8, mainland communication, but the machine calls out an error saying that their satellite dish is down. He then clicks 5-6 for sonar access, but yet another warning comes up saying that the sonar is completely inoperable. Frustrated, Locke goes to click the last number option, 7-7, hostile intrusion, but before he can click the number, Mikhail comes up behind him and threatens his life with a knife. Down in the bunker, Kate is attacked by B, the same woman that she had met on Hydra Island. Saeed threatens B with a rifle, but she doesn't flinch at the sight of it. Saeed and Kate take B out of the bunker, coming face to face with Locke being held at gunpoint by Mikhail. B and Mikhail argue in Russian, which inevitably ends with Mikhail shooting B directly in the heart. Mikhail attempts to turn around onto himself, but is unable, since the three of them prevent him from killing himself.
Прости меня! John!
Saeed calls Rousseau over, who is insistent that they kill Mikhail since they already have maps that will lead them to the barracks. Before much can be discussed, the flame cabin bursts into flames. Saeed demands to know what happened, as Locke was the last one in there. He tells them of the number of instructions, and of the last option being 7-7 if there was a hostile incursion, and he clicked it not expecting anything that crazy to happen. What a good idea! Episode 12 begins with Claire catching a migrating bird. She notices that a lot of them have tags on them from scientists trying to see where they land after migration, and she hopes that if she puts a tag on them, then maybe a scientist will find their location. Desmond has continued to have strange premonitions of Charlie's death, and the truth comes to light whenever he acts super weird about helping Claire. Turns out that Desmond had seen Charlie falling to his death after trying to catch a bird. Claire declares that she'll stand by Charlie during his hard time, and that they'll face his dark fate together. Back in the jungle, several important conversations are had. Rousseau confides in Kate about her fear that she won't like who her daughter has become, that even if she finds Alex would never know the work that Rousseau has put into finding her. Later, Kate has a long conversation with Mikhail about his real story of coming to the island. He tells her that he was approached by someone when he was 24 about the island, that he arrived by submarine. The submarine that the others used to be able to go to and from the island, but since the electromagnetic episode that recently occurred, their beacon device has been shut off, so they haven't been able to leave. Kate asks him why any of the others would stay on the island if they had an exit access to leave. Mikhail cryptically responds with, "You would never understand it because you can't. Only the people on the list can understand the wonders of the island, and those people are also the ones who were taken to the island by him." Kate assumes that he's talking about Ben, but he isn't. He references the guy in charge almost as though he's a mythical being, describing him as a magnificent man. Rousseau yells for the group to come see what she's found. A long line of strange poles with balls on top. Mikhail tells them that they're super sound barriers that surround the barracks for protection, but they don't work anymore. Locke, frustrated, pushes Mikhail into the line of fire, causing him to foam at the mouth and bleed out of his ears, instantly killing him. The group then carefully climbs over the barrier one by one and hides near the barracks. The episode ends with them seeing a happy Jack playing football with Tom, one of the other residents. Episode 13, titled The Man from Tallahassee, begins with the group waiting until nighttime to hatch a plan to rescue Jack. Kate goes into his cabin, but she's quickly surrounded as there are cameras in the room. Saeed is dragged into it as well, but upon questioning, Kate denies anyone else being with them. Locke takes charge in this episode, finding Ben's cabin and holding a gun to his head. He's demanding to know where the submarine is, but Locke doesn't give in. Meanwhile, Jack is allowed to speak to Kate. He tells her his plans of escaping the island with Juliet, and that once he's escaped, he's going to send help to come back for the rest of them. This doesn't go well for him, of course, with Locke blowing up the sub and all. Ben reveals that he basically let Locke do it since he didn't want Jack to leave. They have Locke tied up in a room, but Ben allows him to be free once more. The episode ends with Ben giving Locke something in good faith, a chance to kill his abusive father. Episode 15 is incredibly eventful. First off, we learn more about Kate's dark past.
So essentially, her stepfather used to beat her mother. And to stop it forever, Kate started a fire in their house with him in it. Wow. In the barracks, Kate is afraid and alone in an empty room. Locke enters and tells her goodbye, saying that he's joined the others and will be leaving her now. He tells her that he tried fighting for her case, saying that she was a good person, but the others told Locke about everything that she's done, and he couldn't defend her any longer. He leaves the room, and to Kate's horror, someone throws in a gas can. The last thing she sees is all the others wearing gas masks and heading off to an unknown location together. Kate wakes up in the jungle, handcuffed to Juliet. The two fight, ending in Kate dislocating Juliet's shoulder. Suddenly, Kate hears the monster in the woods, so she yanks Juliet into a hiding spot. Juliet watches in fear as bright flashes engulf her face. She asks Kate about what that possibly could have been, but instead of seriously answering her, because truthfully, Kate doesn't actually know what it is either, she simply responds with, "Why don't you tell me?" Now, let me just say that there's some female tension between Juliet and Kate in regards to Jack. Earlier in their travels together, while trotting back to the barracks to rescue Jack, Kate told Juliet that Jack didn't want her coming back for him because he didn't want her to get hurt. Juliet scoffs at this, saying the real reason that Jack didn't want Kate to go back for him was that she broke his heart when she slept with Sawyer. I don't know, this kind of reeks of like early 2000s TV. I don't know. They're on an island and all they can think about is this man. Kate is stricken by Juliet's words, since she didn't know that she was being watched at that time. The following day, the girls hear the monster again while stumbling upon the force field that killed Mikhail at the same time. Juliet yells at Kate to follow her onto the other side of the barrier, but Kate is too scared, thinking that she might die. Juliet takes out a key for the handcuffs, going over to a keypad and typing in a code, causing the monster to appear in its true form, the black smoke. The force field scares it off, leaving Kate angry, and asking Juliet why on earth she wouldn't unlock them the second they realized that they were trapped to each other. Juliet, exasperated, responds that she didn't want to be abandoned again so soon, since the others left her defenseless with no explanation. Juliet also tells Kate that she lied about not knowing about the monster before, but that she doesn't know anything about it except that it doesn't like their fences. At the barracks, Kate reunites with Jack and Saeed, but Jack is clearly more interested in Juliet, which hurts Kate's feelings. Saeed doesn't want Juliet to come back with them, as he doesn't trust her, but Jack gets overprotective, saying that Juliet is, from now on, under his protection. In episode 16, we learn of Juliet's backstory. The episode depicts Juliet arriving at a secret compound facility with her sister, who had just defeated cancer. In Juliet's backstory, she's saying goodbye, but she'll be back in 6 months. It becomes obvious that she's not allowed to talk to anyone from the outside world while she's away, or know about her secret location. Once inside the facility, she's greeted by Ethan, the man that the Islanders murdered for being a weirdo. He tells her that she'll be helping them with their little issue while she's with them. This is later shown to be reproductive issues that have been happening while on the island. Juliet is fine with all of this, but she hesitates whenever they present her orange juice filled with a tranquilizer. They assure her that the island will show her magical things that she's never seen before. After their pep talk, she takes a leap of faith and downs the entire drink. Once on the island, Juliet is shown witnessing the death of a mother. She's incredibly distraught and tells Ben that she seems to be of no use to them, that she'd like to go home. He refuses, showing the first signs of her true fate on the island. She insists that she would like to leave, but Ben threatens her, saying that her sister's cancer came back and that she's going to die within the next couple of months. Ben tells Juliet that Jacob has personally declared that he will cure her sister of cancer if she stays on the island until her duty has been fulfilled. Juliet begrudgingly complies. 2 years later, Juliet is shown with the others in normal-looking houses on a compound. She gets some x-rays back and notices that Ben himself has a large tumor on his spine. She storms into his housing compound, screaming at him for lying to her. He told her that nobody on the island ever gets cancer because Jacob protects them, but he seems equally as confused as she does at the news. She calls him a liar, which she doesn't take well. A couple of days later, he takes Juliet to a secret room containing Mikhail. He presents to her a real-time spy who has a camera pointed at her sister, all of her hair grown back, and a baby boy playing at a park. Juliet cries, true tears of joy, overwhelmed with love and gratitude for the life of her sister. She asks Ben once more if she can leave the island to go back to her, but he coldly responds, no. After going outside, the two witness the plane crashing to the ground. Ben says that maybe Juliet will find a new mother from the fallen plane. In the present day, Juliet, Jack, Kate, and Saeed make their way back onto the beach. Here, Juliet gets ridiculed for being there, but Jack continues to try and protect her, saying that he knows it looks weird, but she's one of them now, and Locke has joined the other side. While all of this is happening, it's glaringly clear that Claire is sick with something severe as she doesn't wake up whenever Aaron is crying, and it continues to get worse as time passes. Juliet pulls Jack and Kate aside and explains to them that she knows what's wrong with Claire, that she'll need to go up to Ethan's old stash of supplies to help her. every woman on the island dies during or after pregnancy because their body doesn't recognize the baby as normal, rather a foreign object. Juliet has finally come up with a serum that worked, or at least she thinks it works because Claire is still alive. She thinks that Claire's body is having a late reaction and is in need of more of it. She also tells them that this is what Nathan's original job was, to inject Claire with the serum so that she would survive pregnancy, but that he got weird and captured her instead, which is not supposed to be part of the plan. Jack allows her to run off to Nathan's old checkpoint. Once there, she's confronted by Saeed and Sawyer, who are demanding that she explain her existence on the island before they allow her to go back to Jack. She outsmarts them, shocking them with her knowledge of their lives that they lived before landing on the island. Information that she presumably got from Mikhail when he was researching the plane crash and monitoring their whereabouts. Having thoroughly outsmarted them, Juliet is easily able to grab the medicine and walk past the men who are still speechless.
How long was it before you told everyone on that beach exactly how many people you've tortured in your life?
Before all of this went down, Juliet and Ben sat in a dark room by themselves. They were going over a plan. Juliet is to handcuff herself to Kate and leave them lying in the jungle until Kate wakes up. If Kate asks about the key, she's to say that she doesn't want Kate to abandon her. They then go over to the Claire situation, saying that they'll leave something for Juliet to use on her in Nathan's old spot. After talking about the plan, Ben mutters, "See you in a week," and gives her a gas mask, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Man, the others really think of everything, huh? In episode 17, Desmond has a premonition that Penny will be coming to the island to find him. But in this vision, Charlie also gets stabbed. He doesn't tell him this, though, leading him all the way to the location where he's supposed to die. At the last moment, he tells Charlie to duck, avoiding the spear by mere inches. Charlie's frustrated with Desmond for not telling him in advance about his death being so near, but Desmond just shrugs it off, saying he didn't want to change the vision in case Penny doesn't show up because of it. During their trek, Desmond, Charlie, Hurley, and Jin witness a helicopter crash. The guys find somebody hanging in a tree, cutting them down. Desmond is convinced that it's going to be Penny, but is disappointed to find a different lady that he doesn't recognize at all. She doesn't say much. She continues to mutter that she's going to die, in Spanish. They all notice that she's been impaled by a stick. Hurley sets off her emergency flare in hopes that Jack will see it and head their way, since they think they're too far away from them to go find Jack and bring him all the way back to them. The woman starts to say Desmond's name, while he denies knowing anything about her. Back on the island, Kate tries to flirt with Jack before she does her dishes, but he ignores her advances. He even asks her for her spoon before going off to laugh and have dinner with Juliet instead. Kate begins to cry, heading to Sawyer's tent to have intimate time with him instead, seemingly, well, out of spite. The next day, Sawyer learns the truth about her reason for sleeping with him, but instead of being upset, he tells her that she doesn't have to feel like she's using him. He would do stuff like that with her anytime she asks. Episode 18, titled D.O.C, begins with Jack asking Sun a bunch of questions about her ongoing pregnancy. She gets a bit suspicious, leading her to ask Kate about Jack and Juliet's relationship. Kate tells Sun about Juliet's position as a fertility doctor, which freaks out Sun. She confronts Juliet and learns that every single woman on the island who's been pregnant has died. That night, Juliet wakes Sun up from her sleep to take her to the Staff, which was the medical facility that we'd seen Claire be held captive in earlier. Juliet tells Sun that if she were to conceive off the island, then she would probably not die. Sun admits that she did indeed cheat on her husband before the plane crash. However, she's been intimate with Jin since then, so she's unsure on whose child it could be. Juliet's goal is to do an ultrasound so that she can figure out when the expected pregnancy delivery date is. That way, they can more easily figure out if Sun will die or live. Unfortunately, the baby is shown to have been conceived about 60 days ago, while their plane crash was 80 days ago. Sun is understandably upset, but is glad that the baby is Jin's. Sun begins to leave, but Juliet stays behind, sending Ben a voice recording. She tells him of Sun's condition and that she'll collect samples of the islanders. She ends the message with, "I hate you," revealing to the audience that she doesn't want to do any of the things that she's been doing. She just wants to get off the island once and for all. Back with Desmond, the group continues to listen to her ramble in different languages about her dying. They think she has a punctured lung. Mikhail pops out of the jungle, seemingly frightened to see the men standing there. He tries to run away again, but Jin tackles him. Didn't think that Mikhail was actually still alive, since the sonar fence, but this is lost, so anything is possible. Mikhail tells them that he used to treat wounds in the army, that he's going to treat the girl if they release him once he's done. Desmond complies, allowing Mikhail to begin. Mikhail is successful in treating her, and tells them that she's going to heal in about a day. When they question her healing speed, Mikhail explains that the island heals much faster than anywhere else. The girl tells them that she's not alone. But Mikhail translates this as, "Thank you for helping me." He then attempts to steal her satellite phone, but is reprimanded and let loose once more empty-handed. Naomi, the woman who crashed into the tree, wakes up and Desmond tells her that they're the survivors of Flight 815. Naomi looks at them quizzically, informing them that they already found the crash of 815, and that everybody on the plane was dead. Episode 19 begins with us seeing Locke interact with the others. He acts like he fits in, but a lot of the others still look at him weird. He's accompanied by Cooper, whom I'm not sure if I've really talked about before, but he's Locke's father, who swindled Locke out of a kidney, and was also the man who swindled Sawyer's family out of money, causing his father to kill his mother and then kill himself. Ben calls Locke in to talk to him privately. He tells him that Juliet has infiltrated the island to see if any of the remaining survivors are pregnant, that they plan on taking any of them who are. Locke isn't super distressed by this, but questions why Cooper is on the island. Ben explains that when people join them on the island, that they must show their dedication to the cause, so Locke will need to kill his father. Oh. Ben leads Locke to the column that Cooper is tied to, gives Locke a knife, and gags his father, who mocks Locke thoroughly and proclaims that he's not going to do it because he's spineless. A crowd of others gathers, including women and children, to watch on. Locke ends up not doing it, walking away from the crowd, as Ben announces that Locke is not the man that they thought he was. The next day, Locke is approached by Richard, a longtime inhabitant of the island, and another one of the men who led Juliet there 3 years ago. He tells Locke that the reason Ben publicly humiliated him was because he's getting jealous. The others had started feeling as though Locke was important because his paralysis was cured upon landing on the island. Apparently, the others have been getting annoyed with Ben for a while, focusing so much on fertility issues rather than on the innate magic of the island. Richard urges Locke to find himself, but he won't be able to do that until his father is taken care of. Richard is certain that he could get someone else to kill his father, referring to Sawyer, who swore even before arriving on the island that one day he is going to kill the man who ruined his life. The next day, Ben tells Locke that the others will be leaving their camping ground to continue on their journey without Locke. The only way for him to redeem himself would be to track their path while carrying the dead body of his father on his back. Locke is sad about this, thinking that he was specially chosen to be one of them, but Ben insists that they must have made a mistake.
And John? Unless you're carrying your father's body on your back, don't bother.
That night, Sawyer is peeing when he sees Locke standing before him. Locke tells Sawyer that he's kidnapped Ben, that he'd like Sawyer to kill him. Sawyer follows him into the jungle, curious. Locke ends up trapping Sawyer inside the slave ship at the Black Rock in the same room as Cooper. Sawyer doesn't recognize him at first, but after realizing who he truly is, Sawyer becomes frustrated. He ends up using Cooper's chains to choke him to death. Locke thanks Sawyer for what he's done. He then gives Sawyer the tape recorder of Juliet's message to Ben, revealing her to be a mole for the others and swindling the islanders. He then leaves, carrying his dead father on his back. Meanwhile, Desmond doesn't trust Jack anymore since he's too buddy-buddy with Juliet. He gets Saeed involved with Naomi instead. The two talk, and Naomi tells them that she was hired by Penny to look for Desmond and Flight 815 that crashed. Naomi considered this to be stupid, since the authorities had already found the lost plane off the coast of Bali with all the dead bodies inside. After being prompted, she presents her satellite phone to Saeed. While the phone is out, Kate finds them and demands to know what's going on. After finding out, she rushes to Jack and tells him what's going on as well in front of Juliet. Episode 20 gets weird. Titled The Man Behind the Curtain, we learn of Ben's upbringing. His father went to work for Dharma, so he was part of their weird schooling program for all the Dharma Initiative children. One day, while there, his school got attacked by the Hostile, also known as the Natives. It's shown to be a standard procedure, as all the children in class knew to hide in the corner while the loud sounds continue. That night, Ben is awoken by his father, who's arguing outside their house. He's mad about the hostile violence and is demanding more money for having to deal with gun violence while he's trying to do his job. After hearing the fighting, Ben is shown a mirage of his dead mother, who had died giving birth to him. This totally weirds Ben out, causing him to make enough noise for his father to hear. His father tells Ben to go back to sleep. Later, Roger, Ben's father, makes a rude comment about Ben's birthday just being the anniversary of the day that Ben killed his mother, aka childbirth. This causes Ben to start planning his escape. One night, he runs out to the sonar fence and deactivates it. He runs into the jungle and finds Richard, whom he is at first afraid of. He asks Richard if he can join him, and Richard admits that Ben may be able to if he's patient enough. About 20 years later, Ben is shown in a Dharma uniform and taking a drive with his father on yet another birthday that his father had forgotten. Ben gasses and kills his father, coming back to Dharma Initiative, where all the residents have been killed as well. He packs up some bodies and heads back with the others to wherever they came from. Sawyer heads back to the beach and tells Kate and Saeed about the tape. They confront Juliet, but she'd apparently already told Jack about the entire thing, that the two of them have already been trying to come up with a plan together. Locke arrives at the others' location. and demands to learn all of the information available on the island. Ben takes him aside and tells Locke that the person in charge is Jacob, and that Jacob will only talk to Ben because Ben is the only person out of the others who was actually born on the island. Locke doesn't believe him, saying that his hand was shaking the whole conversation, making it obvious that he must be lying. Mikhail suddenly runs up, telling Ben that the sonar fence wasn't set to a lethal level when he was shot, so that's how he was able to survive. He tells them about Naomi in the helicopter, to which Ben explains that they'll take care of her whenever they go to collect the pregnant women. Locke loudly announces in front of Richard, Mikhail, and Tom that Ben just said that he'd take Locke to meet Jacob. Locke then beats Mikhail unconscious because he got super jealous of the information since nobody's been able to talk to Jacob. Ben tells Richard and Tom to break it up, but nobody listens, watching as Locke slowly takes charge of the situation. Ben and Locke stop at a waterbed, where Alex finds them. She doesn't say much except, "Happy birthday, Dad," to Ben while handing Locke a pistol. This alarms Ben, but the two continue forward. Ben leads Locke to an old cabin where he presents an old chair. Ben begins to talk to Jacob, arguing even, but there's nobody there. Locke is bewildered at what lies before him. He's convinced that Ben is kind of putting on a show, but Ben insists that Locke just hasn't unlocked it yet. Locke tries to leave, but before he can, he hears a deep voice saying, "Help me." Locke turns and asks what Ben had just said, but he didn't say anything. Ben is shocked that Locke can suddenly hear Jacob. The room begins to shake, and Jacob throws Ben against the wall. Locke sees a man for a moment sitting in the chair, but only briefly before the two of them are out of the cabin. Walking back to the jungle, Ben shows Locke the grave filled with all the dead Dharma members. He then shoots Locke in his only remaining kidney, causing him to fall into the pile of bones. Locke asks him why he did what he did, to which Ben replies, "Because you can hear him." Okay, jealous much? Jack and Juliet redeem themselves in episode 21 with a sick-ass plan. They get Rousseau to help them, and their plan involves planting dynamite in each of the women's tents. The second the others go to collect them, they're going to meet a pile of explosives. On a side note, Charlie is still destined to die. Just important to note. Desmond tells Charlie that after he helps with a hatch, that Claire and Aaron will end up making it back to the mainland by helicopter. Also, Saeed and Kate realize that to use the satellite phone, they're going to need to infiltrate the Looking Glass, which is an underwater Dharma bunker that's currently responsible for cutting off all communication to and from the island. Charlie and Desmond overhear them talking about the underwater hatch, and apparently it has been completely flooded. Whoever would dive down there would surely die, but Charlie fakes being really good at swimming to volunteer himself for the task, accepting his fate and wanting Claire and Aaron to continue living past the island. Suddenly, Carl, Alex's boyfriend, frantically shows up and announces that the others are attacking one day sooner than they originally said, changing their target day to that night. The group decides to all trek to the radio tower so that they can be at the transmission site after unblocking the telecommunication device. They hope that they may get a signal without the others knowing, so they can get rescued before their women are taken by the others. Charlie and Desmond head off to the Looking Glass. Desmond offers to take Charlie's place, but Charlie knocks him out instead, worried that he would force the decision upon him. He then dives into the water and enters the moon pool. Instead of being flooded, it's lit up and running. Charlie's ecstatic, until he realizes he's being held gunpoint by two women. The Islanders hatch a plan involving Saeed, Jin, and Bernard, Rose's husband, to stay and fight on the beach to distract the others in time for Jack to lead the rest of them to safety. Naomi gives Jack the satellite phone before they depart. Down in the Looking Glass, Charlie's being interrogated by two women, Greta and Bonnie. Charlie tells them what Juliet has told him, leaving Bonnie to call Ben to inform him of Juliet's betrayal of the others. Ben orders Mikhail to go down to the Looking Glass so that he can figure out what exactly Charlie was trying to do down there. The attack squad on the beach kills 9 of the others before they're captured. Bernard panics and gives all their group's information away. Nice going, Bernard. Back in the Looking Glass, Bonnie tells Charlie that only she, Greta, and Ben know the code to disarm the Looking Glass, which bothers Charlie mildly, but he's already dedicated to the bit at this point. Desmond wakes up, realizing that he's been knocked out by Charlie. He dives in the Looking Glass while being shot at by Mikhail from the shoreline. Once inside, Bonnie and Greta are so distracted talking to Ben that Charlie's enough time to tell Desmond to hide before they can notice him. Mikhail calls Ben, confused as to why Bonnie and Greta are down there since they've supposedly been on a mission to Canada. Ben basically ignores Mikhail's questions and orders him to kill everybody down there. He complies, but before he can kill Charlie, Desmond shoots him with a spear gun. Bonnie tells Charlie the code during her last breaths, probably freaked out and feeling betrayed. The code is the song Good Vibrations. Right, take that in for a moment. On the mainland, the Islanders are trekking up into the jungle, heading towards the tower. Sawyer loudly announces that he's going back to the beach to help the other guys out. Juliet follows in tow along with Hurley, whom Sawyer is getting annoyed about. Locke wakes up still in the grave of bones. He's about to kill himself when Walt appears above him announcing that he has got work to do. The hiking group eventually makes it to their location, but is greeted by Ben and Alex. Ben tells Tom to kill the hostages, Jin, Saeed, and Bernard. If he doesn't hear from him in 1 minute, Jack loses it. He attacks Ben and beats him senseless. Jack takes his walkie-talkie and hears 3 gunshots go off, devastating him. Rousseau is overjoyed to see her daughter, connecting with her for the first time, and tying up Ben's beat-up body together. Back on the beach, it's revealed that the 3 men didn't actually kill Saeed, Jin, and Bernard, but rather shot bullets into the sand. They think that Ben is slowly losing his mind. Hurley drives out of the forest using an old Dharma van, running over one of their men and successfully killing them. Sawyer then shoots the other 2, successfully rescuing Saeed, Jin, and Bernard. In the looking glass, Charlie can dismantle the frequency-blocking device. A call goes through to Penny, who's confused as to how they got her specific frequency. Charlie mentions Naomi's freighter boat, assuming that Naomi's story of being hired by Penny is true. Penny is weirded out by this, as she does not own a freighter, nor has she ever hired a woman named Naomi. Charlie is about to die in the water capsule, so he writes on his hand, "Not Penny's boat," so that Desmond can see it through the window before he dies. On the mainland, Naomi's about to call her freighter since the transmission was finally going to go through, when suddenly, Locke throws a knife into her back. Jack is super confused by this, with a gun pointed at his head by Locke. Locke says to him, "You're not supposed to do this," while walking away from the situation. Jack calls the freighter and gets into contact with their communications officer, Minkowski. Jack mentions Naomi's name, which he seems to recognize, causing him to begin getting the GPS on them. This is the first episode in the entire series that contains a flash forward. The future involves Jack being super depressed and addicted to oxytocin. He eventually calls Kate, who arrives at the airport to see him. He confides in her, saying that he rides Oceanic flights every single Friday in hopes that he's going to crash onto the island again. He wants to go back, but Kate doesn't. She leaves him screaming at the airport, "We have to go back." Our first episode of Season 4 opens with Hurley on the radio with Jack. Jack lets Hurley know that Naomi's people are on the way to pick them up. Hurley shares the good news. On the shore, he opens up to Bernard about his past and ends up jumping into the water. There, he sees Desmond returning on the outrigger and goes to investigate. Desmond shares that the boat is fake. Everybody freaks out. At the radio tower, the rest of the survivors are waiting to be rescued. Ben is panicking and asks Rousseau to take Alex and flee. Referring to Alex as his daughter upsets Rousseau, and she says she isn't his daughter. Suddenly, Jack gets a call from Hurley, who tells him that the freighter is not real, that they need to figure out what to do. Hurley stumbles upon the strange cabin that Locke had seen Jacob in. He starts hearing whispers and is contacted by Locke, who confirms their beliefs about the freighter being dangerous. The two groups eventually reunite, with the sad news about Charlie's death being shared. Jack tackles Locke, upset with him for trying to sabotage their attempts at getting rescued. Locke stands up for himself, giving all the survivors the choice to travel to the barracks with Locke, or stay near the beach and face whatever is on that freighter ship. Hurley, Sawyer, Rousseau, Alex, Carl, and Claire all choose to go with Locke, while the others stay, leaving Jack, Kate, Rose, and Bernard. Suddenly, a man parachutes down from a helicopter above them, asking for Jack once he lands. In this episode's flash forward, Hurley plays basketball with a disheveled Jack. He tells him that he regrets his decision to go with Locke to the barracks, that it, on the island, will do anything in its power to get them all back. Several new characters are introduced in this next episode, confirmed dead. They all crash onto the island by helicopter, seemingly from the freight ship that Naomi was a part of. They all seem to be wanting to find the island for different reasons. Daniel being a physicist specializing in time, Charlotte, an anthropologist, Frank, who's supposed to be a pilot on the plane that crashed but didn't go that day, Miles, who can supposedly commune with the dead, and Naomi, who was specially chosen by Matthew, the leader of the freight ship, to go onto the island first. This episode consists of the islanders being weirded out by the new invaders, with tensions rising all around and escalating whenever Ben says that he is a spy currently working on their freight ship. Locke is equally weirded out by the situation and ends up kidnapping Charlotte and Ben so that he can have some sort of leverage over the new group in case they really are a threat. Episode 3 starts where we left off, with Frank being worried about his friend Charlotte and offering to take them to the freight ship if Saeed can safely return her to them. With that, Saeed, Kate, and Miles sneak off to the barracks but find it completely abandoned. That is, except for Hurley, who was found bound and tied up in a closet. Apparently, he disagreed with Locke's plans of keeping people hostage, which led to Locke locking Hurley up and leaving him for the flies. Hurley then tells them that Locke is headed for Ben's house. Once arriving at the house, they get ambushed, with Hurley apologizing for lying to them because he's still on Locke's side. Guns are pointed at the outnumbered group, but Saeed eases tensions and explains to Locke that he obviously doesn't trust the new group either. offering up Miles in exchange for Charlotte, since their deal only involved her and not a safe return for everybody else. After their deal is struck, Kate decides to stay with Locke for now, while Saeed takes Charlotte to Frank in expectation of flying over to the freight. Desmond demands to go with him, as he had noticed that Frank had a photo of him and Penny together. He's growing very suspicious. Meanwhile, Daniel, the man who seems obsessed with time travel, contacts the freight ship and informs them to send a rocket. However, it's delayed by over 30 minutes, which is weird to him because it shouldn't be delayed at all. The flash forward of this episode consists of Ben giving Saeed a hit list saying that they know that Saeed is coming for them next. Saeed seems to only be doing it to protect his friends, but we aren't given any more information than that. Season 4, Episode 4, Eggtown begins with Locke throwing eggs at a wall. Inside Ben's house, he brings some eggs to Ben, but after successfully getting under his skin about not being able to find Jacob's house again, Locke throws a fit and gets rid of his eggs. With Kate being there, she begins asking around for some answers as to what's going on. She's distracted for a moment by Sawyer, who keeps bringing up the possibility that she's pregnant. Kate eventually finds Miles in the bathhouse and demands answers, but he makes a deal with her instead. If she can get him to talk to Ben for a few moments, then he will answer any of her questions. Kate confides in Sawyer, getting his help to sneak Miles into the basement to talk to Ben. Once down there, Miles offers to take care of Charlotte in exchange for $3.2 million. Ben doesn't respond.
You've arranged this meeting so you could blackmail me?
It's extortion if you want to get technical.
3.2, but why not 3.3 or 3.4?
Afterward, Kate drills Miles about the freighter, to which he responds that everyone on the freighter knows everything about all the island's inhabitants, much like how the others knew every fact about them without having ever spoken to them before. Locke notices Kate talking to Miles and orders her to return to the beach inhabitants. Once gone, Locke puts a live grenade in Miles' mouth, causing him to have to bite down in order not to set it off. Locke tells Miles that this will be his punishment for not following the rules. Back on the beach, they get antsy with the news from Jack about Desmond and Saeed flying off to the freighter. Charlotte uses her emergency phone to contact the operator on board. They get a chilling response that the helicopter never actually arrived, that they didn't even know was supposed to be coming back. This episode's flash forward shows Kate in a trial. During the trial, they keep mentioning her son, but she doesn't want him to get involved. That evening, when she returns home, it's shown that the child she's caring for is Aaron, Claire's son. Episode 5 begins with us seeing a point of view from the helicopter ride to the freighter. Frank, the operator, is forced to veer slightly off course as they get hit by a horrific storm. During this time, Desmond begins having strange reactions, traveling in time and somehow getting caught between 1996 and 2004, with no memory of who Saeed or Frank are. Once on the freighter, Desmond is locked inside a sickbay with another member of the ship who is unstuck in time. Minkowski, the man who's first in control of operating the transmission, explains that Penny used to call the ship all the time, but that they were under strict orders to never answer her. Desmond begins to freak out, but is eventually told to travel to Oxford in 1996. He complies, and the person he meets there sends a rat named Eloise to the future. Back in the future, Eloise dies shortly after transporting. Minkowski explains that it's because Eloise is not a constant. She's described as an entity that is able to exist in a stable form in different time periods. Desmond then goes off course and visits Penny in the past, begging her to give him her phone number that he can call her in the future. He goes back to the present, calls her, and the two talk lovingly to each other. After the phone call, Desmond shows no sign of distress from the events that have occurred, and even tells Saeed that he feels perfect. Back on the island, Jack begins to worry. Daniel tells him that lots of things can go wrong if they veer off course even slightly. Later, Daniel rummages through some of his notes and finds a strange note written in dark ink. If anything goes wrong, Desmond will be my constant. Okay, some strange history was learned in this next episode, The Other Woman. Essentially, Juliet was in a relationship with this man named Goodwin, the other who was shot by Ana Lucia. Juliet was worried that Ben would get jealous of her relationship, which became apparent when he sent Goodwin off to go undercover, knowing that he's most likely going to get killed in the process. After he was murdered, Ben had gone up to Juliet and essentially claimed her, saying, "You're mine." Kinda creepy, kinda brutal. In the jungle, Jack learns that Daniel and Charlotte are currently missing. He sets off to find them with some of the other islanders, running into Juliet, who's having a strange conversation with Harper, the woman that Goodwin was originally married to. She miraculously appeared before Juliet after she heard whispers coming from the forest. She tells Juliet that Danielle and Charlotte are currently headed towards the Tempest, which is the location that harbors all the poisonous gas that the hostiles used in order to murder the Dharma Initiative members. She tells Juliet that Ben said she'll need to stop Daniel and Charlotte, or else everybody will die. Before Juliet can say anything in the conversation, Jack shows up, leaving Harper to disappear completely. Meanwhile, Kate actually runs into Daniel and Charlotte, who are acting suspicious. She eventually finds the gas mask that they have in their possession she proceeds to question them further. Before Kate can get very far, they knock her out and leave her. Juliet reaches the Tempest only to find the opposite to be true. The others were shutting off the gas, not starting it, meaning that they were just trying to protect the island. At Ben's house, Ben continues to inch towards manipulating Locke. He tells him that the person manning the freighter's name is Charles Widmore, Penny's father, and is only searching for the island so they can exploit it, which he knows will definitely get Locke on his side. He even offers to tell Locke who he has stationed as a spy on the freight. This freaks Sawyer and Hurley out, as they see Ben later just casually hanging around rather than being held prisoner like they had expected him to be. Episode 7 gives us some insight into what's going on the freighter. Desmond and Saeed are given some beans to eat, and later that evening, they're secretly given a note that reads, "Don't trust the captain." Soon after their secret note, one of the crew members just calmly walks off the freighter, drowning himself. Of course, they are then introduced to the captain, Galt, who tells them that their plane crash was staged by someone powerful enough to crash a plane and somehow trick the authorities into seeing every one of their dead bodies at the bottom of the ocean. The freighter is there to track down Ben Linus, who they hint at being the powerful man behind it all. Later, Desmond and Saeed are taken to a dingy-looking room, and someone is called in to clean it up. That someone is none other than Michael. Saeed recognizes him, but doesn't make it obvious to anybody nearby. On the mainland, Sun gets panicky and demands that she and Jin travel to Locke's group instead. She doesn't trust the freighter anymore. Juliet gets weird about this. She tries to talk to Sun about her pregnancy. She's basically ignored. Before the two leave, Juliet confronts Sun once more in front of Jin. She tries to tell Jin that Sun will die if she doesn't get help soon, but Sun won't translate this. This frustrates Juliet, so she ends up telling Jin about Sun's cheating. Sun slaps Juliet, but Juliet is super worried about Sun and needs her to take her life seriously. Jin leaves for a while, but ends up coming back, forgiving Sun as he understands that he used to be a pretty awful guy. Sun's flash forward is of her giving birth by herself. She gives birth to a baby girl. That evening, she visits a grave with Hurley, and the headstone reveals that it's Jin's. The date is the day that they first landed on the island. Episode 4 begins with us seeing Michael back on the mainland and trying to kill himself. After his attempts fail, he visits his mother, whom he left in charge of Walt with no explanation. He tries to speak to Walt, but his mother refuses, saying that he revoked his parental right to ever talk to him again since he abandoned him. Michael tries to kill himself again, this time by shooting himself, but he's stopped by Tom, who tells him that the island won't let him die since he still has work to do. Michael tries a third time to kill himself, but before he can, he overhears that the flight that he was on was found and everybody on it was dead. He approaches Tom, who tells Michael that Charles Widmore faked the plane crash so that people would stop searching for the flight in case they ended up finding the hidden island. He then assigned Michael a position on the freighter. His task is to kill everybody on it. He's told that if he completes his task, that all of his old friends will survive.
I can't go back to that island.
I didn't say you were going back to the island.
Michael attempts to do this, setting off a bomb once on the freighter. A sign shows up saying, "Not yet," and then he's called by Ben, who tells Michael to find out all the information that he can about the inhabitants on the freighter. Saeed soon learns of Michael's current position, immediately gives up the captain as a traitor. In the barracks, the survivors are having a meeting, and Miles tells all of them that his team is, in fact, after Ben. Ben tells them that they're going to need to go to the tavern to retrieve the gas to get rid of the people on board the freighter. Rousseau, Alex, and Carl head off to grab the gas, but are gunned down. Both Carl and Rousseau are shot, with Alex left to hide and yell that she's Ben's daughter in hopes that she'll gain some sort of upper hand. In episode 9, Jack is having a severe stomachache. At first he has some mild pain, attempts to treat it with some antibiotics. The man who was shown to walk off the ship previously washes up on shore with his throat slit open. The islanders demand to know what's going on. Daniel contacts the ship in Morse code, asking about what happened to the doctor, but the only message he gets back is, "The doctor is fine." Daniel tries to cover up and lie, but the true message is revealed by Bernard, who, for some reason, is fluent in Morse code. Jack is enraged, but ends up doubling over in pain in his stomach. Alex is held captive by Kimi, who's leading an intense-looking mercenary team, tasked with capturing Ben, killing anybody on the island, and then torching the whole thing to the ground. Shortly after, they begin attacking Locke's group, causing them all to hunker down. The mercenaries hold Alex hostage, telling Ben that he'll have to come out to talk to them, or they're going to kill her. Ben feigns that Alex means nothing to him, so they execute her right there on the spot. This shocks Ben to the core, causing him to escape through a secret stone door. Ben summons the smoke monster, successfully killing off all the mercenaries who were there. Frustrated with everything that has happened, Sawyer ends up taking most of the group to head back to the island, all except for Hurley, who stays with Locke, continuing their mission to find Jacob's cabin. In Ben's flash forward, he's shown waking up bewildered in the Sahara Desert. He eventually finds Saeed, who is grieving Naomi, his old lover, at a funeral. Ben tells Saeed that the person who killed Naomi was ordered by Charles Widmore. He then gives Saeed the information on the specific individual who did the killing, and Saeed kills the assassin without a second thought. This pleases Ben, as now he is his own personal hitman. Later, Ben makes his way to Widmore's penthouse, where he wakes Charlie up from a dead sleep, accusing him of breaking the rules by killing Alex. Charles responds, simply saying that Ben took everything from him. Ben threatens to kill Penny, who, if you remember, is Charles's daughter. Charles tells Ben that he'd like the island back, to which Ben claims that he will never find the island again. Jack passes out from the pain in his stomach, causing Juliet to think that he has appendicitis. She gets ready to perform surgery on him, making Jin, Daniel, and Charlotte retrieve surgical supplies from the staff. Jin doesn't trust anything that's been going on lately, and demands that Charlotte promise that whatever happens, she'll get Sun off the island. Charlotte eventually agrees. Once back, Juliet performs her surgery, and all goes well. While heading back to the beach, Claire has a vision of her father, and follows him into the jungle, leaving Aaron alone to be found by Miles and the others who are traveling with her. Frank shows up, warning Sawyer that Kimi is near, but they need to hurry. Frank then distracts Kimi and his mercenaries, giving Sawyer's people enough time to get away. The episode's flash forward is of Jack living with Kate and Aaron. He ends up proposing to Kate, and she says yes. Jack gets weird visions once again, and is given a weird message from a dead Charlie. You're not supposed to raise him. Jack ends up taking pills and drinking once more. Tensions in their relationship rise when Kate is shown to still be in contact with Sawyer. Episode 11 begins with us seeing a flashback of Emily, Ben's mother, as a younger woman. She gives birth prematurely to Locke after being hit by a car. After giving birth, Locke is closely monitored by Richard, who stays young for a really long time due to his wish from the island. He tests Locke as he ages, asking him questions to see if he's ready, whatever that means. Kimi returns to the freighter and attempts to shoot Michael, but the gun just won't go off. The captain, unamused with the situation that is currently occurring, helps Saeed into a raft so that he can head to the beach and warn his people about Kimi's wrath. Desmond wants nothing to do with the situation, and says that he'll be remaining on the freighter. Kimi kills the captain along with Ray, the doctor, who had washed up on shore with a slit in his throat. Frank is ordered to fly Kimi back to the island, so he does, but he brings a satellite phone with him as well. Jack recovers on the beach and bears witness to the helicopter. The satellite phone drops onto the beach and is tracking the helicopter's current location. Locke has a dream telling him how to find Jacob, showing a map within a corpse wearing a Dharma outfit from the mass burial ground. He knows that a map must belong to the fallen and begins to lead Hurley and Ben in the correct direction. Once at the cabin, they find Claire speaking with her dead father, who appears to be representing Jacob. Locke asks Jacob what he can do to save the island, to which he simply responds, "Move the island." Season 4's grand finale consists of a 3-part adventure. Part 1 begins with Sawyer reuniting with Jack and Kate. He tells them that Claire is missing, and together they track down the helicopter. They find Frank handcuffed to it, warning them that Kimi is following a dangerous protocol, and that he's after Ben. They're supposedly in the Orchid Station, which is shown to be some greenery. Instead of listening to the warning, they head off to find Ben themselves because Hurley is with them, and they don't want him to get hurt. Back at the beach, Saeed starts ferrying people to the freighter. Meanwhile, Kate finds Saeed, and the two decide to go after Jack and Sawyer, who are currently chasing down Hurley, only to get captured by Richard and some of the others. Once on the boat, Jin's son Aaron and some of the other survivors realize that the freighter is set to detonate soon. Jin begins to panic, telling Sun to get to the top of the freighter in hopes that she will survive somehow. In a flash forward, only 6 survivors are shown: Jack, Kate, Saeed, Hurley, Aaron, and Sun. They tell the press that they survived on a fictional island until they found rescue, that all the other survivors died either on impact or shortly after crash landing. Later, Jack is told that Claire was his half-sister, making Aaron his biological nephew. Part 2 shows us the Orchid, the Dharma Initiative spot that was supposed to examine the strange anomalies of the island, particularly the negative exotic matter. The video found inside exemplifies the time anomalies that exist within the island, setting a rabbit a few milliseconds into the future. The Dharma video warns inhabitants to never put any metal objects inside the vault, which Locke catches Ben doing almost immediately once down there. Ben tries to escape, but is surprised to see Kimi in the entrance. He ends up stabbing him to death, much to Locke's dismay. Before Kimi dies, he told Ben that if he were to die, everyone on the freighter would explode in an instant. Ben tells Locke that he is the new island leader. Ben then descends into a strange icy tavern and turns a massive wheel that moves the island. He then banishes himself from being able to return. Overwhelmed and panicking, the rest of the survivors hitch a ride on the helicopter to head back to the freighter. There isn't enough room for Sawyer though, so he essentially sacrifices his life by staying on the island instead of leaving with them. Once on the freighter, they find out about the situation and are unable to stop the explosives from going off. Jin and Michael are shown to be killed in the explosion. The Oceanic 6, along with Desmond, manage to find a raft and are later rescued by Penny's boat. Once on land, the Oceanic 6 collectively decide to never speak of what happened to them on the island. Flash forwards. Jack is insistent to Kate that he'd like to go back to the island, but Kate is upset. Also, Claire visits Kate in a vision, telling her to not bring Aaron back to the island. Hurley is visited by Saeed, who tells him that circumstances have changed and that Locke has died. Ben approaches Jack at Locke's funeral, telling him that they must all return to the island together, including Locke's dead body. Sun is shown approaching Charles, telling him that she too wants to go back. Season 5 begins, focusing mainly on time travel and fixing what has been broken. Episode 1 begins with us seeing Daniel faking a different identity in the past, when the Dharma Initiative videos were first being filmed. It's shown that the man filming them is also Miles's father. After Ben has turned the frozen wheel, time anomalies begin, with the survivors still on the island teleporting through different stages of time. Daniel describes the island as a time record that keeps skipping. The Oceanic Six are preparing in their own ways to return to the island even though they don't really understand what's going on, but rather knowing that they must, nonetheless. Episode 2 gets even weirder, with the survivors still on the island getting swept up in a military-style conflict. Juliet and Sawyer are kidnapped, and the army men order that Juliet's hands be cut off. Locke reveals himself, killing some of the army men in the process and saving Juliet's hands. Back in 2007, Hurley is seen driving around an unconscious Saeed after they get attacked by two strange men. Hurley attempts to buy a new outfit so that he doesn't look like he has blood all over him, it's ketchup by the way, but is recognized very quickly. Hurley confides in his parents, telling his mother about the island. Ben shows up at Hurley's house, which freaks him out. Hurley runs outside to some cops and screams that he's a murderer to get away from Ben as quickly as possible. Kate confides in Sun about people trying to get a paternity test on Aaron to discredit her in court. People have been relentless about it, causing Sun to warn Kate that someone may want a paternity test on him for reasons other than that, hinting that someone who knows about the island might be trying to take Aaron away from her for some reason. Later, Ben is shown with Jack, transporting Locke's dead body with the help of a secret team located inside a butcher shop. Ben tells Jack to pack his things because he's never going to be returning to his normal life. Jack is completely fine with this, being the one who actually wants to go back to the island the most. Ben receives a message from Eloise, Daniel's mother, who used to be a leader of the others. She tells him that he only has 70 hours to get all the Oceanic Six back onto the island, or God help us all. Episode 3 starts with us watching a flashback to 1965. Eloise, Daniel's mother, sees Daniel, Miles, and Charlotte. She's known to be a part of the hostiles dressed up in military uniforms. Ellie seems to recognize Daniel, which is interesting considering that he's her son. They led them to the others' camp at the time, shown to be led by Richard. Richard is assuming that their captors are actually secret spies from the US Army there to find their bomb. The bomb is named Jughead. It is a massive hydrogen bomb. Daniel tells them that he can deactivate whatever bomb they're currently worried about, and once he sees that it's leaking radiation, he orders Ellie to bury it deep underground, promising that it will never go off since he's from the future and knows that it doesn't.
Yeah, that would be perfect, because, of course, rifle fire, right next to, what would you call this, hydrogen bomb.
Juliet, Sawyer, and Locke arrive at the camp, while Locke demanding that he speak to Richard. He tells Richard that Jacob sent him, which stops any harm from coming to them, which is good because a young Charles was about to attack. Before Locke can speak to Richard, another time shift happens, causing Charlotte to collapse. She doesn't take the time shifts very well, and it's only getting worse. Desmond is headed off to Oxford in search of Eloise due to a strange memory he had of Daniel telling him to do so in the past. While there, he learns that Daniel used to do inhumane studies on humans and time travel. Desmond ends up getting a new address for Daniel's mother, this time finding that she's located in Los Angeles. Desmond doesn't want Penny and his newborn son, Charlie, to come with him, but is unable to lie to Penny, and she insists that they tag along. In episode 4, those living on the island go through several different time changes. One notable incident involving Rousseau's crash long ago. She was heavily pregnant with Alex at the time. Her team also finds Jin floating in the ocean, still alive after the freighter had exploded previously. Back in the present time, the whole group meets up with each other. Saeed had found Kate's address after he was almost assassinated in the hospital. Her address was in the killer's pocket, meaning Kate was probably the next to go on their list. Jack and Ben help Hurley get out of jail, and Sun show up as well, pointing a gun at Ben, wanting desperately to kill him. Nobody except for Jack and Saeed is content at all with Ben being a part of their plans, yet it doesn't seem like they have a choice in the matter. Episode 5's flashbacks grow even more frequent, with all the members getting nosebleeds and showing severe time sickness. Charlotte, unfortunately, dies in front of Daniel, and he's deeply disturbed. Jin gets accompanied by Rousseau's old team, rescuing Rousseau from God knows what when a bunch of her team members go down into a deep hole. He advises her not to, probably saving her in the process. Later, Rousseau seems to be slowly losing it, telling her team that the monster has infected them She believes Jin to be the carrier. But before she can do him any harm, another time flash happens. Jin is finally reunited with his friends and is told by Charlotte, who's still alive, to never bring him back to this place, since this place is dead. She reveals to them that she was actually born on the island, but that she was taken away from it, and has tried to return ever since. She then dies. The group then heads to the Orchid area, where Locke attempts to head down a well leading to the wheel axis that the island is attached to. Before he can head all the way down, Jin makes him promise not to bring Sun back to the island. He even gives Locke his wedding ring as proof that he's died, so that she has no reason to do so. Once down in the axis, Locke is told to bring everybody back. He turns the wheel, and another flash occurs. Off the island, Ben gives Sun Jin's wedding ring that he had found on Locke's corpse. He tells Sun that he's alive, manipulating her into wanting to go back to the island even more. Ben brings Sun and Jack to Eloise, along with Desmond, who just found her. She announces that it's time to get things started. Episode 6 begins with Jack, Kate, and Hurley waking up on the island in 1977. Jin, dressed up in a Dharma uniform, shows up and is shocked but excited to see them. Back in the future, Eloise tells the group that the island is constantly moving around, hence why it's so hard to find. You'll only ever be able to find it during specific windows, one being a flight that takes off in a few hours, which she orders them to board. Desmond is over the whole thing and heads out of the room, not wanting to go through with it anymore. That night, Kate confides in Jack about wanting to go back to the island with him. She doesn't have Aaron with her, and we don't know what she did with him. She's crying, but Jack promises that he won't ask about what happened with the child. The next day at the airport, Jack, Sun, Kate, Saeed, along with a federal agent named Lana, Hurley, and Ben arrive at the airport. Hurley made sure to buy all the remaining seats so that no innocent bystander would be forced to get caught up in the situation. Once on the plane, the group realizes that their pilot is none other than Frank, the same pilot who was supposed to be flying them the last time that they had crashed. Once on the plane, Jack reads Locke's suicide note, which stated, "Jack, I wish you had believed in me." And with that, they're off, flashing through time. Episode 7 shows us the man who's been telling Locke what to do inside the Axis ice hatch. Whenever Locke had finished spinning the wheel, stopping the time shifts, Christian Shepherd tells Locke to say, "Hello to my son," which we later find out to be Jack. Locke is then transported to the same desert that Ben had been teleported to when he turned the wheel. He's been taken to a hospital nearby. Charles Widmore shows himself to Locke, explaining to him that he was once the leader of the others before Ben had banished him. He tells Locke that the two of them are one and the same. They both wish to protect the island at all costs. He goes on to tell Locke that he must get back to the island, or the wrong side of the war will win. Locke sets off on his mission to recruit the Oceanic 6, which doesn't go as planned. Literally nobody listens to Locke. He then tries to visit his old lover's grave, but the person with him gets shot and killed. Locke runs, taking the car to try and get away, but he gets in a car crash soon after. Locke wakes up in Jack's hospital and tells him that his father says hi, which shocks Jack to his core. He too denies Locke's request to go back to the island, sounding frustrated with him for even offering. With no hope left, Locke prepares to kill himself, planning to hang himself in his room. Ben storms in and gets Locke to calm down, trying to tell him that Charles Widmore is just using him for his own advantage. Locke tells Ben about needing to find Eloise, which angers Ben to the point of strangling Locke to death. Once on the island, Locke appears wearing his funeral suit, seemingly alive and well. Lana is weirded out by this and alerts the other residents to the strange man, not having seen him before. Locke visits Ben, which is awkward for obvious reasons. In episode 8, before the time jump stop, Sawyer, Juliet, Jin, and Miles are teleported to a much earlier time frame, talking like in the 1800s. Everything looks funky. I see a part of a giant statue. The group runs into Amy, who is currently mourning the loss of her husband. They attempt to help her, but she ends up using the sonar fence on them, knocking them all unconscious.
Going forward, we should all do a better job of trusting.
They're taken and interrogated by the Dharma Initiative, with Sawyer going by a different name, LaFleur. He swindles his way into them, thinking that they were on a savage mission, landing them a spot on the next submarine out of there. In a time jump to 1977, Sawyer ends up being Dharma's head of security. Juliet is seen helping Amy give birth, birthing a baby, Ethan, the weirdo who's obsessed with Claire. Sawyer and Juliet are clearly together, having been in the same time frame for 3 years and living a life together. The episode concludes with Jin yelling at his friends, having found Jack, Kate, and Hurley. Episode 9 begins with Sawyer explaining what's been happening since they left, starting with how they are currently working undercover inside the Dharma Initiative. Later, Jin finds Saeed pretending that he's a hostile, so Dharma doesn't question any funny business going on between their people and the newcomers. Saeed is placed in a holding cell, is eventually greeted by a nice young boy named Ben. Yeah, the Ben. Saeed begins to get worried, thinking that something is seriously wrong since Ben is currently a small child. Since Sawyer is head of security, he's able to take Jack, Kate, and Hurley to get processed within the Dharma station, allowing them to become initiates as well. Meanwhile, there's another crash on Hydra Island consisting of Ben, Lana, Sun, and Frank. Sun, Frank, and Ben head to some canoes, hoping to make it to the main island. But before they take off, Sun knocks Ben out with an oar. They arrive at the barracks and are greeted by Jack's father, who shows them a photo of the 1977 Dharma Initiative group, highlighting Jack, Sawyer, Kate, and Hurley. We're shown some of Saeed's point of view in episode 10. He was tricked by Lana into boarding the flight heading to the island. She had told him that she was hired to take him to Guam for trials from his past, but once he saw Ben on the plane, he knew instantly that the whole thing had to have been a setup. Saeed won't talk to any of the interrogators, and he's taken into the woods and given drugs so that he's going to spill all the information that he knows. To which he does. He tells them all about stations that haven't even been built yet, about the future, that he's a time traveler. The interrogators are obviously pretty weirded out by his answers, thinking that they just gave him too many drugs. But Sawyer laughs at this, saying they gave him just the right amount. Dharma wants Saeed dead, but he's able to escape with the help of Ben. Once out, Saeed kills young Ben whenever he can, a decision that he's been contemplating since he first saw him. Kate is shown to have given Aaron to Claire's mother, a choice that she made after she was accused of keeping Aaron only to heal her own broken heart. She decides she will go back to the island, leaving Aaron in a safe space for the time being, hoping to bring Claire back upon her return. Jin wakes up to find Ben's bleeding body on the ground. He rushes Ben to the barracks to find help, but Juliet is unable to save him. He's still alive, but barely. As tensions rise and all fingers begin to be pointed at the newcomers, Sawyer locks them up in a house, having one of his guys watch them closely. Kate, Sawyer, and Juliet feel like letting a child die is cruel, so they take him to the others on the island, handing Ben's crumpled body to Richard, who's skeptical of the group but takes him nonetheless. The episode ends with us seeing the point of view of Locke seeing Ben for the first time. When he wakes up as an adult after Sun had knocked him out with an oar, Locke is the first person that he sees. Welcome back to the living. We see Ben's relationship with Alex in episode 12. He had taken Alex with the help of Ethan, telling Rousseau to run whenever she hears whispers in the woods. He raises Alex, even though Charles forbade it, saying that it was Jacob's will for all babies on the island to die. Ben refuses, keeping Alex. Later, Charles is banished from the island for breaking the rules, that is, leaving the island and having a child. Penny with an outsider. Charles is furious at Ben during this, saying that Ben gloated as he was taken away. In the present time, Ben attempts to shoot Penny in revenge for Charles's ruthless killing of Alex, but he accidentally shoots Desmond instead. He goes to get Penny next, but is interrupted by their son, Charlie, giving Desmond enough time to tackle Ben to the ground. Locke demands an apology from Ben, who finally gives one when he hands Locke a shotgun. The two head off to the main island together in their canoes. Once at the barracks, Locke puts on Jack's father's shoes, Christian Shepherd, before stepping onto the island. He meets up with Sun and the others, who shows them the photo of all their friends in Dharma. Ben is surprised to see this, sees no memory of them being there at that time. Sun also mentions that Jack's father had told her to wait until Locke arrived to do anything else. Ben tells them he needs to repent to the smoke monster for the death of Alex. Okay, things are starting to get a bit weird at this point, don't you think? They find an underground temple chamber, with Ben falling even further down than the others. He sees a lot of strange things, one being hieroglyphics of Anubis, the god of death in Egyptian mythology, bearing witness to the smoke monster, hinting that the monster is literally ancient. The smoke monster appears, showing Ben a vision of Alex. He tells her that he's sorry about her death. Instead of acknowledging him in the slightest, Alex slams him against a column, warning him to never harm Locke again, or else she'll destroy him. Ben is incredibly humbled by this encounter, and swears that he'll follow Locke's exact orders for the rest of his life. The episode is interesting, because, well, it shows us that while the smoke monster has killed a lot of people, it's also an entity that judges others wholly and completely. Each of its murders is supposed to be symbolic and rooted in deep meaning, which is something that Ben apparently knew. Daniel is freaked out by his mother, Eloise, being involved. He doesn't like her much, and feels as though she's doing things on her own volition. He tells everyone that the incident will happen soon, and everybody must evacuate. He instructs Kate and Jack to detonate Jughead, the massive bomb living on the island, to set everything back the way that it was originally. He tells them that none of this will have happened, and everyone can go back to the way things were before they arrived. He explains that variables of time are people, their actions, and the choices that they make throughout their lives. Everything can be changed. Daniel storms off to the hostiles to find out where the bomb is, but he's shot in the back by Eloise as a young girl. He's shocked, because she knew all along that he was going to die there, yet she chose to send him to the island anyway. In the flash forward, it's revealed that Daniel is the son of not only Eloise, but also Charles. Episode 15 starts with Jack telling Eloise about the bomb and needing to go there so that the crash never happens. She reluctantly agrees after seeing her own handwriting in Daniel's journal, confirming that he is, in fact, her son. Kate is a little bit upset. She doesn't actually want the flight to never happen because she would never have been able to heal as a person or meet Jack. Jack brushes this off, more focused on the task at hand rather than actually thinking about his decisions. Kate ends up leaving the bomb group, hitching a ride on the submarine along with Sawyer, Juliet, and some others who are all evacuating. Jack, Saeed, Eloise, and Richard head into some tunnels under the barracks in order to find the bomb. Saeed warns Jack that Eloise might just be trying to get the bomb to destroy Dharma rather than to stop the crash, which Jack takes into consideration, but he thinks that Eloise will keep her word, since she seemed pretty horrified that she had just murdered her future kid. In 2007, Locke gets a bit sassy, tells Ben that he knows he's never actually seen Jacob, which I find to be a funny detail. Locke tells them that he wants to talk to Jacob so that they can reunite with their old friends. Ben is horrified to learn that the real reason Locke wants to go back to Jacob is so that he can kill him. Jack is successful in his attempts at blowing up the bomb, and Juliet is the final blow, throwing a rock at the core once it's down in the Swan. Once at the statue, where Jacob should be, Locke tries to manipulate Ben into killing Jacob for him. Richard finds this to be very odd, also pointing out that Locke is strange in general, considering the island has never resurrected somebody before. Meanwhile, Lana and her crew discover Jacob's cabin and burn it to the ground. She then presents the dead body of John Locke, meaning the Locke walking around is an imposter entirely. Whoa. Inside the statue, Jacob declares that the imposter must have found a loophole. Ben stabs Jacob, and his last words are, "They're coming." The imposter then kicks Jacob's body into the fire. Back in 1867, Jacob is seen lounging on the island, watching as the Black Rock boat heads right for him. A man in black next to him insists that one day he will kill Jacob by using a loophole. Wow, I am so lost. We now move on to episode 1 of season 6. Inside the statue, the man in black, pretending to be Locke, picks up the bloody knife that Ben had stabbed Jacob with and tells Richard that Jacob is dead. He then tells Ben that he needs to talk to Richard. Outside, Alana and Bram ask to enter the statue, but Richard says only those summoned by Jacob may enter. They protest and say Jacob invited them in. Ben exits and relays what the man in black said to Richard. Richard gets so mad, he throws Ben onto the ground next to Locke's body, revealing to Ben that he really is dead. Bram grabs him and drags him back into the circle. Bram enters the statue with 3 other men, guns drawn. They demand to know where Jacob is gone. The man in black responds that Jacob is dead. This angers them, so they fire several shots at the man in black, one appearing to actually hit him. He disappears, and Bram finds that the bullet didn't actually hit him. As Bram turns around, the monster enters, and there's brief fighting. Unfortunately, the monster quickly overpowers them and kills 3 out of the 4 men. Bram creates a protection circle of ash around himself. The monster knocks him out of the circle and impales him on Jacob's loom, killing him instantly. Ben watches the whole scene, terrified in the corner. Shortly after, the man in black appears behind Ben and apologizes to him for having to witness the fight. He specifically says, "I'm sorry you had to see me like that," therefore confirming the connection between the monster, the man in black, and Locke post-Flight 316. In episode 3, Lennon hurries to inform Dogan, one of the authority figures of the others, that Saeed is alive. Sawyer is bitter that Saeed gets another chance and informs Kate he's thinking of leaving. Dogan orders his men to capture and detain Jack, Miles, and Jin. Sawyer enters and announces his departure. Dogan denies him leave and promises Saeed's safety in hopes to persuade him. Sawyer doesn't care and leaves anyway. Kate offers to go search for Sawyer, but Lennon, the man who guards the temple, doesn't believe she can convince Sawyer to come back. Saeed is strapped up in Dogan's lab, getting electrocuted and tortured. Saeed later tells Jack that he was tortured, which makes Jack confront Dogan. Dogan lies and says Saeed was infected, needed to be tested. He then gives Jack a pill to bring to Saeed. Jack asks what is in the pill, but Dogan won't answer. When Jack swallows the pill, Dogan tackles him, revealing that the pill is poison. He warns that there's something dark inside Saeed, that if it reaches his heart, he will become lost. Jack asks how he knows that. Dogan replies, "It's what happened to your sister." In the jungle, Kate leads a group into the woods to look for Sawyer. Along the way, Kate becomes suspicious of the others' intentions. She decides to break off and ends up finding Sawyer at the barracks when she's alone. Kate watches him mourn Juliet's death. Sawyer admits that he came to the pier with plans of proposing to Kate. However, his feelings are super complicated at the moment, as he's also mourning the loss of Juliet, who really wanted Sawyer to leave the island with her. He throws the ring into the ocean. Kate breaks down into tears, feeling guilty and regretful. The episode ends when Jin gets caught in a bear trap and is attacked by Aldo and Justin. Right when Aldo is about to take Jin down, Claire appears, shooting both men. Jin is shocked that Claire is alive, but she seems transformed. as if the warning that stated something dark may have overtaken her. In episode 4, on the island, the man in black recruits a lonely Sawyer. They travel to a cave on a cliffside. There, he shows Sawyer a list on the wall of numbers and names. He says Jacob had written these names and was manipulating everybody's lives to get them to the island. Some specific people are candidates who will be considered to take over as Jacob on the island. The man in black seems very dismissive about it, acting as though the role is unimportant. He offers Sawyer a chance to finally stop being a pawn and find freedom. Sawyer, bitter over his losses, agrees. A subplot implores Lana to collect Jacob's ashes post-mortem. She explains to the others and Ben that the next leader will be chosen to replace Jacob. Ben does not reveal Locke's death to the group, even when Alana warns that the man in black is not really Locke. Our 5th episode opens at the temple, where Hurley is visited by the ghost of Jacob. Jacob tells Hurley that he needs to go on a journey and take Jack with him. Although Jack does not want to go, he gets dragged along when Hurley says that they could find out and understand why they were brought here to the island. The two connect on the journey, mostly over Jack's strained relationship with his father. Hurley seems to believe that Jacob has a plan for everybody, that everything is happening for a reason. They reach a lighthouse that no one was aware of. Upon entering, they discover a huge dial with numbers corresponding to those on the candidates on the cave wall. When Jack turns the dial to 23, an image of his childhood home gets revealed. Realizing Jacob has been watching for most of his life, Jack suddenly becomes furious. He smashes the mirrors, disabling the lighthouse.
Why was he watching?
I don't know.
Why is my name written down on this thing?
He didn't tell me.
What does he want from me?
Are we supposed to do
What does he want?
I don't know, Jack!
Back at the temple, Saeed remains under watch. People are suspicious that he has become infected by darkness. During this, Claire has captured one of the others and is now interrogating them. She's looking for her son, Aaron. The captive doesn't help her, so she kills him. Jin lies and says Aaron is at the temple. Claire reveals she's friends with the man in black, meaning she's under his spell of influence. Episode 6 opens with Saeed confronting Dogan about how he was tortured. Dogan says Saeed has been claimed by darkness. The only way to stop it is by killing the man in black with a special dagger. Saeed goes to do so, but he ends up failing. The man in black explains that Saeed was set up, but offers him a deal. Join him and he can have whatever he wants, including somebody that he lost. Saeed returns to the temple, consumed by darkness. Dogan tells Jack the infection is similar to Claire's, and Saeed is not the same man that he was before. He also tells Saeed that the man in black can't be killed unless he, Dogan, is dead. Saeed drowns Dogan in the temple pool. Then, he kills Dogan's interpreter, Lennon. The protective barrier around the temple is gone, allowing the man in black to now enter freely. The man in black attacks, killing tons of the others. Claire and Saeed, now both under the man in black's control, watch calmly. Kate tries to save Claire, but ends up finding out how gone she is after she tries to tell Claire that she'd come to rescue her so that she could be with Aaron again. Claire essentially scoffs at this, telling Kate that she's not the one that needs to be saved, as Kate is dragged away. Episode 7 begins with Ben now a prisoner of the remaining survivors on the beach. Alana forces him to dig his own grave after finding out he was responsible for Jacob's death. While digging, the man in black approaches and offers him a deal for Ben to regain power and flee by siding with him. Ben runs, as he's never wanted anything to do with the man in black. Alana chases him, assuming that he's just trying to run away from his unfortunate fate. He turns around and holds her at gunpoint. He goes on a tangent about not being appreciated. Alana shows him compassion, and he returns with her instead of joining the man in black. Meanwhile, Jack, Hurley, and Richard explore an ancient ship that crashed on the island centuries ago. Richard reveals that Jacob gave him immortality, but now that he's gone, he feels as though life has no purpose. Jack helps him get back in his groove. Episode 8 begins with the man in black sending Sawyer on a mission to Hydra Island to gather information about the survivors of the flight. Upon arriving, Sawyer discovers the wreckage of the Ajira plane and a pile of dead bodies that were killed by someone after the crash. He also finds a woman named Zoe, who pretends to be a survivor but quickly reveals herself as part of Charles Widmore's team. Sawyer is captured, taken aboard a submarine, where he meets Widmore himself. Widmore warns Sawyer about the man in black, claiming he must not leave the island. Sawyer strikes a deal with Widmore to lure the man in black into a trap. However, when he returns to the main island, Sawyer reveals to Kate that he plans to trick them and escape with her by plane. He confesses that he doesn't trust the man in black or Widmore, and is looking out for himself and Kate. The episode begins in the present, with Richard believing his immortality has lost all purpose. He wanders off, intending to switch to the man in black's side. Hurley, however, follows him and begins speaking to someone Richard cannot see, later revealed to be his late wife, Isabella. The bulk of the episode flashes back to 1867 in the Canary Islands, where a younger Richard is a poor man struggling to save his sick wife, Isabella. He accidentally kills a doctor while trying to get medicine and is arrested, sentenced to death, and then sold into slavery. He's transported aboard the Black Rock. The ship then smashes into the statue, completely destroying it. the ship then ends up docked inland. Once on the island, Richard is imprisoned in the ship's hold, where the smoke monster kills the crew, but spares him. The man in black appears in human form, pretending to be a savior, and manipulates Richard by telling him that Jacob is the devil, that they're all trapped in hell. The man in black promises to reunite Richard with Isabella if he agrees to kill Jacob. Richard attempts to do so, but Jacob easily stops him, and then reveals the truth. The island is a cork, holding back a great darkness. Jacob offers Richard a choice to work as his representative and ensure that people brought to the island have a chance to choose good over evil. Jacob tells Richard that he can choose whatever he wants as compensation for being his representative. Richard first asks for his wife back, which Jacob isn't able to honor because he cannot raise the dead. He then asks to have his sins washed away so he may not go to hell when he dies, which Jacob again refuses. He then tells Jacob that if he can't wash away his sins, then he'd like to live forever, so that he may never find out what hell awaits him on the other side. Jacob grants him immortality. Richard accepts and becomes Jacob's intermediary, marking the beginning of his long, ageless existence. Back in the present, Hurley relays a message from Isabella to Richard that he must stop the man in black from leaving the island. Her word and the realization that she has found peace gives Richard renewed purpose. He decides to continue fighting for Jacob's cause. Episode 10 launches with tensions continuing to build between the Man in Black's group and Charles Widmore's newly arrived team. Jin is held captive by Widmore at the Hydra Island cages. Widmore insists that Jin is important because of his knowledge of the Dharma Initiative maps and grids. Meanwhile, Sun is with Jack and the others at the beach camp. Desperate to reunite with Jin, she tries to run off but is knocked unconscious. When she wakes up, she's developed aphasia, which means she can understand English but can only speak Korean. The Man in Black attempts to recruit Sun by promising to reunite her with Jin, but she refuses. Jack tries to reassure her, revealing that Jacob wrote their names together in the cave, suggesting that they must be reunited. Meanwhile, Saeed, now emotionally numb and seemingly fully under the influence of the Man in Black, infiltrates Widmore's camp. There, he discovers a drugged and unconscious Desmond Hume, who has been brought to the island by Widmore for an unknown purpose. Episode 11 is short and sweet. Well, not really. Desmond awakens in a mysterious room inside Widmore's submarine after being brought back against his will. Widmore informs him that he's crucial to defeating the Man in Black. Despite Desmond's resistance, Widmore has him subjected to a powerful electromagnetic experiment similar to what Desmond previously experienced in the Swan Station. Episode 12 begins as Hurley takes on a leadership role after Alana is suddenly killed in a dynamite explosion. Hurley begins to believe that violence and destruction are not the way forward, and when Richard insists on blowing up the Ajira plane to stop the Man in Black, Hurley secretly destroys the remaining dynamite to prevent it. Claiming that he's receiving guidance from Jacob, Hurley convinces the group to meet with the Man in Black instead of fighting him. As they move through the jungle, Hurley admits to Jack that he lied about speaking to Jacob. They just wanted to keep everybody together and avoid another catastrophe. Jack respects Hurley's honesty. Eventually, Hurley's group arrives at the Man in Black's camp. Meanwhile, the Man in Black takes Desmond to a well on the island. She claims was built long ago by people curious about the island's electromagnetic properties. Despite Desmond's calm demeanor, the Man in Black pushes him into the well, suggesting that Desmond's unique resistance to electromagnetic energy makes him dangerous. Our next episode, titled The Last Recruit, begins with the Man in Black as Locke finally speaks directly to Jack, revealing that he has been impersonating Christian Shepherd, Jack's father, since Jack first arrived on the island. He claims everything he did was to help the survivors leave. When Widmore's team suddenly launches a mortar attack on the Man in Black's camp, chaos breaks out, and Sawyer uses the opportunity to initiate his plan to escape with his group. He tells Jack to follow them to the boat, but Jack hesitates, still uncertain about abandoning the island. Ultimately, Jack decides he cannot go through with the escape and jumps off the boat mid-journey, telling Sawyer that the island isn't done with him.
Jack! What did you say to him?
Changed his mind.
Back on shore, he's found by the Man in Black, who ominously tells him, "You're with me now," signaling a dangerous shift in Jack's circumstances. Meanwhile, Claire, who's emotionally unstable and under the Man in Black's sway, follows the group to the boat. She confronts Kate with suspicion and jealousy over taking Aaron off the island, but is gradually persuaded by Kate's sincerity and promised to reunite her with her son. Claire agrees to join them, though her loyalties remain questionable. On Hydra Island, Widmore betrays his deal with Sawyer and captures Jin, who is finally reunited with Sun. Widmore plans to stop the Man in Black at any cost, even if it means sacrificing the remaining survivors. Both Widmore and the Man in Black are moving closer to their final conflict, with the survivors caught in the middle. Episode 14 begins with Jack and the group regrouping with the Man in Black after Widmore's forces capture Jin, Sun, and others on Hydra Island. The Man in Black claims he's trying to help everybody escape the island on the plane, but when they arrive, they find the plane rigged with explosives. Realizing Widmore had no intention of letting them leave, the Man in Black devises a new plan to steal the submarine. As they approach the sub, a firefight breaks out between the survivors and Widmore's men. During all of this, Kate is shot, and the group barely manages to board the sub, except for Claire, who's left behind, and the man in black who never intended to join them. Once aboard, Jack discovers a bomb planted in his backpack. He believes the man in black manipulated them into taking the bomb on board, knowing they would trigger it themselves. Jack argues they should do nothing, as the bomb will not go off unless they interfere. However, Saeed, Jin, Sawyer, Hurley, Kate, and the others panic. Sawyer pulls the wires, triggering the timer. Then Saeed grabs the bomb and runs to the other side of the sub, where it explodes and kills him instantly. The explosion causes massive flooding. In the chaos, Frank is seemingly killed by debris. Sun becomes pinned behind a wall. Jin refuses to leave her side, even as Jack and the others try desperately to free her, realizing they can't escape. Jin and Sun share a final emotional moment, holding hands as the submarine floods and they drown together. Jack, Kate, Sawyer, and Hurley barely make it to the surface, extremely upset by what just happened. Meanwhile, back on the island, the man in black prepares to finish what he started. He tells Claire that the sub explosion means only a few people are left, and his goal is now within reach. Our next episode, titled Across the Sea, opens with a shipwrecked pregnant woman named Claudia washing ashore on the island. She's rescued by a mysterious woman dressed in rags who delivers Claudia's twin sons, Jacob and his unnamed brother, who will become the man in black. After the birth, the woman kills Claudia and raises the boys as her own, teaching them that the island is special and must be protected. She warns them never to go near other people who live on the island and keeps them isolated, insisting that they're the only ones who matter. As the boys grow older, they begin to question their existence and the truth about the island. When they encounter other humans, the man in black becomes fascinated by their culture and learns that there's a world beyond the island. He eventually rejects his surrogate mother's rules and joins the other people, convinced he can escape the island by tapping into its unique energy source. He discovers a method to harness this power and plans to build a wheel that can channel it, fearing what her adopted son might unleash. The mother destroys the man in black's camp and kills all of his people. In a fit of rage, he kills her, fulfilling a prophecy that one day she would be replaced. Jacob, devastated by her death, retaliates by throwing his brother into the heart of the island, which transforms him into the smoke monster. His human body is found nearby, suggesting that the being now known as the Man in Black is no longer human. In episode 16, Jack, Kate, Hurley, and Sawyer mourn the loss of their friends. They eventually encounter Jacob, who appears to them beside a campfire. For the first time, Jacob speaks plainly and answers their questions. He explains that the candidates were chosen to replace him as the island's protector because he was responsible for bringing them to the island and setting these events in motion. He also admits that the Man in Black is trying to destroy the heart of the island, and if he succeeds, everyone will die. Jacob reveals that his time is nearly up and that one of the remaining candidates must take over as protector. Jack steps forward willingly, finally embracing his destiny. Jacob blesses him with water from the stream, officially passing on the role. Meanwhile, Ben, still manipulated by the Man in Black, leads him to Widmore, who has taken refuge in the Dharma barracks with Zoe. The Man in Black kills Zoe immediately and threatens Widmore, who admits he brought Desmond to the island as a failsafe in case things went wrong. Just as Widmore begins to explain further, Ben shoots and kills him. The Man in Black tells Ben that he plans to destroy the island and wants Ben to rule it afterward. Episode 17 begins with Jack accepting his role as Jacob's successor and is now the island's protector. Jacob appears to him and the remaining candidates and tells them that the Man in Black must be stopped from extinguishing the light at the heart of the island. If the light goes out, the island, and potentially the world, will be destroyed. Desmond, having been rescued from the well by Rose and Bernard, is brought to Jack and the others by the Man in Black. Jack agrees to take Desmond to the Cave of Light, knowing the Man in Black plans to use him as a weapon, though Jack has his own intentions. Meanwhile, Ben has once again aligned with the Men in Black, helping him navigate the island. But Ben is conflicted, especially as he witnesses the Man in Black's disregard for human life in his plan to destroy the island. Richard and Miles survive the earlier conflict and discover Lapidus, who is still alive. Together, they hatch a plan to repair the plane and use it to escape, providing a potential way off the island for any survivors. On the island, Jack and the Man in Black descend into the heart of the island with Desmond, each believing they can control or destroy the light. Desmond is lowered into the glowing cave and removes a stone plug, causing the light to extinguish and the island to begin to collapse. The Man in Black becomes mortal, and Jack realizes that this was the key to defeating him. A brutal fight ensues atop the cliffs. Jack is badly wounded, but Kate arrives just in time to shoot the Man in Black, and Jack kicks him off the cliff to his death. With the island falling apart, Jack decides to sacrifice himself to restore the light. He passes the role of island protector to Hurley, trusting him to care for what remains. Jack then returns to the cave, and with Desmond already unconscious from the energy, replaces the plug. bringing the light back and saving the island, but fatally injuring himself in the process. Hurley, now the new protector, asks Ben to be his second in command. Ben accepts, and the two begin imagining a gentler way to guard the island's mysteries. Meanwhile, Kate, Sawyer, Claire, Richard, Miles, and Lapidus escape using the repaired Ajira plane. Claire, having found peace and reconnected with herself, joins Kate and the others, determined to be a mother to Aaron. Jack, meanwhile, stumbles out of the cave near death. He lies down in the bamboo forest, the same place where he first woke up in the series premiere, and watches a plane fly overhead. With a faint smile, Jack dies, his final moment echoing his first. In the Flash Sideways world, the truth of this reality is fully revealed. This is not an alternate timeline, but a kind of spiritual afterlife. As each character encounters someone important to them, they remember their lives on the island. The emotional awakenings culminate at a church, where Jack arrives last. He reunites with his father, Christian Shepherd, who explains that everyone dies eventually, and that this place exists outside of time. Inside the church, Jack is reunited with all the people who meant the most to him. As they sit together, ready to move on, Jack takes a seat beside them. The doors open to a bright white light, and they leave together, finding peace at last. And with that peaceful ending, we conclude Lost. Wow, I thought that this show would make a little more sense completely written out, and it doesn't. I don't know what to say, it really doesn't. Comment down below if you think I'm being way too harsh, or maybe I missed something. It's overall a really fun experience to watch. There's just a lot of things left unresolved. Anyway, be sure to like this video if you want to see more content like this in the future, and subscribe so you never miss any of our uploads. Thanks for watching. See ya.